Welcome all my guests here. So this is Neural Networks Genuine Conversation, and it's really important to me to start this talk. I think right now, more than ever, we need a place where we can talk, everybody, and get a number of perspectives, because I feel like the way society is skewed, right? I think there's delusions of what we think society should be, right? And I think that the idea of the American dream has become muddy and turned into an illusion. The first topic I want to talk about today is police reform, right? Natalie, Brandon, and I went to a peaceful protest yesterday.
The first American hero was the Klansman.
When do we want it? Now! And when do we want justice? And when do we want it? Now!
We are the Avengers. I bet y'all was in the theater for that back in the day. We are the Avengers. Make some noise to yourself. We are the Avengers.
And there was a guy that was a representative from the NAACP, and he brought up something really impactful to me that I thought was a really good way to kind of stop some of the things that are happening. So they're proposing a law where it's going to be illegal for a police officer, when arresting somebody, to put their knee on somebody's neck.
Right.
There was also a part of the law that he wanted to pass that would make it illegal to basically like restrain people's breathing, right? So that's a step in the right direction. Hopefully it gets passed, right? But to me, I feel like there needs to be more strict psychological evaluations for police officers. I also think there needs to be an annual psychological evaluation for all police officers, and more counselors. My wife's saying monthly. I don't think would be a bad idea. Because, they are in high stress situations, cops. And I'm not taking that away or, diminishing the fact that, they're in a high stress job, right? But they need to understand the consequences of them making a mistake. It's, it's a lot higher than, if I'm working, at school and I give one of my students the wrong information. Oh, they may mess up on a paper they're writing.
Right.
Very different circumstance when somebody messes up an arrest and, like we've seen, like the guy that got knocked over the other day, where police were in riot gear. I'm forgetting what city that's in. Buffalo, that's right. And he got pushed down and the back of his head got cracked open. Yeah. Peaceful protest turns into life or death situation like that. Countless others. Mm-hmm. So what are all your thoughts? And we can kind of go individually on police reform. Natalie, you want to start it off?
I can. I was actually going to take some notes. Well, let's see. First, to hit on what you just spoke in regards with the psychological. Mm-hmm. I do agree with you to the extent that, they need to have that psyche valve when they initially get in there. Psyche valve monthly, or after even extreme arrest or anything that took place. But at the same time, you still know what's right from wrong.
You should.
To call a mistake is like, oh no, my bad. Your name ain't Ethan, it's Mark. Or you're not Mark, you're Ethan. I made a mistake, my bad. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's not an effect on his life. That's a mistake. But when you are consciously making a decision,
yeah,
to put your knee on someone's neck in order to stop them from breathing or to hold them down because you feel as though you are superior, you are in charge, and you are that person. I have the choice whether you live or die. That ain't no mistake.
No.
That's a choice. You're
It's a
choosing
choice.
to murder somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of also our issue that we have within this country, even wordage that we're using. Mm. And it's even sad to hear, not on you, but even your word choice to say, I hope it passes. That's like, it should pass. Why are we hoping that it should pass? That's sad enough that we even have to say that. And that's a language that we're speaking out of our mouths and we are allowing to hear within our ears. It should, like, let's go to the next person.
No, I think there's something really important that you said. You know, when I said I hope it passes, when I say that, I'm saying that from the perspective that I guess that I don't have much control, but I don't think that's that's not really a good excuse, is it? What am I doing to make it pass is what I should be saying, right? And I think our mindsets need to change across the board in the country right now. And thank you for correcting me. You know, I'm going to speak on here and I'm not always going to be right. You know, I'm a human, I have flaws. And I think that we need to be more cognizant of our verbiage. And I think that's an excellent point that you made.
So I was just kind of Googling if I can, may I? Just to see where we are kind of on that law, because I'm not, you know, I'm not as up to date as I should be on. I do remember seeing that they were going to ban it. I saw that come through. So I just wanted to just update myself and see where we are on that. In the city of Minneapolis, they said they will ban the use of chokeholds, but I don't know. Okay, the city council is expected to approve the agreement, which will be enforceable in court on Friday. And this is posted on the 5th, so 22 hours ago. So as of 22 hours ago, at least I know, like, Minneapolis, so that's a little bit of good news, like as best as good news can be at this time, I would say. So just kind of wanted to, I don't know about LA or any other city, but Minneapolis is saying that they're putting a ban to chokeholds.
There should be a federal ban.
That should be a federal.
Yeah.
Because you should be federally indicted for that.
Absolutely.
There's a difference between being indicted in the state, in your city, and then being federally indicted. Federally indicted has a lot more weight, and that's where it should be enforced.
Yeah, I agree. I just wanted to see if maybe, just crossing my fingers, that maybe they did something in the 24 hours since I last, you know.
Last look, yeah.
Read. Yeah.
So Ethan, I was talking to you the other day about you had an idea about having their checks and balances.
Yeah.
With citizens being a part of law.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, definitely. My idea is that fundamentally humans cannot police other humans. It's not something that can be done effectively because humans are, to say, too emotional and not logical enough to be able to keep their emotions in check. And because of that, you know, you have the situation we have in this country where, you know, you have police officers that are, like you alluded to, you know, high stress situation, that's fine, but you have to be able to put that in check, and people can't put that in check enough. So the current situation, the current system that we have needs to be completely, in my opinion, completely dismantled all the way down to the foundation. And it needs to be built back up. And that includes, I think, what would be a partnership between people who are peace officers and community members that would be able to talk to each other, influence and approve policies together, and implement those policies. So to say that that there's any meaningful reform that can be done with what we have now, I don't think that's true.
Mm.
I don't think it's possible. I think the way that the system is set up, it's fundamentally going to be resistant to any kind of change that comes from the outside. And so because of that, the whole thing has to be wiped clean. We have to wipe clean the entire thing. Like you were saying, like Natalie was saying, it's not mistakes or choices, or you can call it a mistake or you can call it a choice, but at the end of the day, there are ultimate consequences to the actions of police officers in situations like what happened with George Floyd. It's an ultimate consequence. It cannot be undone, right? So whether that was a choice that that officer made, Chauvin made, or whether it was something, you know, that he could call a mistake, or I don't know.
Choice for sure. There's intent in it, completely.
Right, exactly, and that's important. So I think that that's something that, you know, needs to be taken into consideration and really thought about. And also, you know, the reason why I came to the conclusion personally, and I've felt this way for a long time, that humans can't effectively police other humans. We just can't do it. We're not equipped to be able to do it. But since we don't live in some futuristic world where robots that are running off of code can police us, that's not happening. We have to do the best of what we can.
Pretty close to it, though.
I'm looking forward to it.
What you mean by that, Brandon?
So, man, we're gonna go down a whole rabbit hole.
Yeah, let's do it.
You know, because that's the next thing that's coming. You know, that AI technology is advancing, and eventually it's going to surpass our human consciousness, especially if we don't wake up, you know what I mean, and become more aware of ourselves. And so if a machine is making decisions faster than us, the first wave of that is a lot of jobs are going to be replaced, which is going to force people, you have to be creative to be independent and do your own thing. And then the next step is going to be policing. So now everything you're doing is being watched, and there's no, like in iRobot, there's no empathy, because robots don't feel that same way. So they're only going to see what they can calculate as right and wrong versus like using their common sense in that moment, you know? But the original police were runaway slave catchers. So then
what's the system built on, right?
Exactly. And the later police are just hidden KKK. So if there's no KKK reform,
they're a lot more active too, aren't they?
Yeah. They're called cops.
But so reforming that way, no. But then I think for us, the awareness would be very, very important of why these systems are in place, where they come from, and who is funding it, so we get to the root of it, you know?
Yeah.
Because I feel like these police are just the first line of defense from this terrible system that we're in. Because they're protecting a higher source who's protecting an even higher source. So where do we fit in with that? Especially in the Black community, we're the most valuable product in the planet. So the whole world is buying to buy for us, but we don't know our own value yet. So we keep getting exploited by other groups of people. And I think the more we become aware, the more they try to put us in fear to feel like we are less than. So when we see images of people getting killed for no reason, they're trying to program our mind with like certain thoughts and certain ideas and narratives that if you see it long enough, you will perpetuate and allow that to become your reality. And that's a war tactic, and that's something that we need to be aware of, like, you know, so that we don't get caught up in creating the system that they want to continue to go on, because we are the power source. So if we don't give into that power anymore, then that system, you know, will soon fall. But that's going to take some work. It's not going to be overnight, and there's so many avenues to go about it. But I do like the change that I'm seeing, and every bit of change in every area is helping, whether it's healthy or unhealthy. But, you know,
right.
The foundation is unhealthy. So, you know.
Absolutely.
100%. And if the foundation is built on shit.
Exactly.
And
What's
you
gonna happen?
build a grand tower off of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, I think that what Brandon was talking about, you know, with like, what was the birth of policing was slave catching.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I mean, this is, let's not pretend that, you know, this was really at its source ever about
anything besides what it is.
Right.
It's just evolved into something else completely. It's evolved from slave catching to the same. I mean, we're seeing the same problems. They're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So
the prison industrial complex. Let me tell you a little story about what I experienced when I was in Ohio during my cousin's wedding about 5 years ago. So he lives in Chillicothe, and he works in the prison system along with my other cousin, Jason. So they invited one of their family friends to the wedding, and he was the owner of the prison in Chillicothe, right, which is one of the biggest ones in Ohio. And he was talking about his quote-unquote like partner, who was the governor. And he was basically the right hand of the governor, making policy and decisions for the state of Ohio. Right?
It's not a conspiracy, dude.
It's not a conspiracy. It's right in front of you.
Really?
It's literally right there. And it's like, I met the guy at the wedding. He was just sipping a Sprite like it was another day.
Like you said,
making policies for the state.
For-profit prisons are all part of that problem.
It's right there.
How did that even become a thing? For-profit prisons. Think about that.
I'm saying.
In order for a business to be for-profit, you have to have something that is generating revenue for you.
Yeah.
And it is.
And it does, and it makes a lot of money.
And how do you get, you know, your revenue source is in that situation is prisoners. So if you have a lot of money, it all ties together.
All of it's together.
You know, guys, as president, you know, it's down 20%. What can we make, you know, something? What can we make illegal that we can, you know, use it as an excuse to throw people in prison? We got to come up with something. And all those things go. I mean, those wheels start turning, and all of a sudden, those same lawmakers all of a sudden have huge bonuses for their reelection campaigns, and you know, them are going to fancy island retreats and stuff like that. I mean, there's accidental, man.
Exactly. Why was that guy the right hand of the governor? Well, it's because he's funding him.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
You get that close to the governor.
Where do they get the campaign money from? There, or you know, bigger corporations.
Yeah.
It even trickles down to the police, you know, departments where you have to have quotas.
Absolutely.
Quotas every damn month. Why do we have to fulfill quotas every damn month? Isn't it great that we don't have to ticket anybody or anybody?
Absolutely. Isn't that a sign of progress? Isn't that a sign of the city doing better, the state doing better, the individual community doing better? Right? The lack thereof.
Nope. It's all about that green.
Absolutely. Which brings me to my next topic, law reform. So I kind of want to jump into law reform. What policies, what laws do we think could possibly turn the tide or start to turn the tide?
Can I chime in real quick?
Yeah, please.
I hate to be like, I feel like I'm like talking too much, but
no.
We need to get
space for everybody to talk as much as they want.
Rid of completely failed, and unnecessary, and might agree or might disagree, but the war on drugs, that is a complete and utter sham. It's a sham.
It's a failure, absolutely.
Exactly what has led to what you call the prison industrial complex.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
Dude, I get it. Drugs are not great, you know, they suck and all that jazz. But you know what? People are going to do drugs, dude. And the thing is, you can either set up a situation where they're going to do drugs. And I'm not talking about marijuana, because I think of marijuana in the same category of drugs as I do
Advil.
And nicotine. All right. And, I mean, so those are equivalent. But I'm talking about, like harder, drugs or whatever, like heroin.
Heroin, yeah.
Speaking of which, being in Ohio, right, the opioid epidemic is out of control.
Oh, it's all over the country, man. All over the country.
Well, specifically in Ohio, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it's terrible, and 100% it's awful. But at the end of the day, we have to look at what causes people to seek out drugs and to begin with. And it's not just, it could be just a party thing. I read a story about a guy who said, him and his girlfriend were living in New York, and they'd smoke a foil every now and then at a party. And, every other weekend they were doing this. And then it became like...
A foil? What is that?
A foil of heroin. Like, just like...
Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay.
They were...
the lingo. Okay.
How do you know that? How do you know so much about the terminology?
Yeah, I gotta go. See y'all later.
I mean, I heard it. Yeah.
Right. So they started off doing it at parties with their friends, and it was, something that they did together to kick it on the weekends. It was, then we just did it anytime something, something good happened. We were doing it 3-4 times a night, just to get kicks with each other. And he said he didn't notice that he didn't think he was addicted to heroin until the one morning when he woke up and he felt like shit. His nose was stuffed up. He had like a headache. He just felt off. He was like, something's wrong. And he did a little bit of heroin and it went away. All right, that's a sickness. Addiction is a sickness, all right? So like, I mean, caused by repeated exposure to a stimulus, right? So.
Ooh, I gotta write a note down.
Yeah, I mean, well, like let's rewind back up. I mean, so yeah, these things like these hard drugs are terrible, right? But there's very little. I mean, we see what we see, in the news media and things like that. I think that we have to look at addiction as a disease, which it is, and once people are addicted to drugs, or if they're drawn to drugs for other reasons, whether it be anxiety, depression, some other mental illness, that is the root cause of drug use. So we need to look at those things and attack those things. Don't attack the drug user and then ostracize them from society by putting them in jail, charging them with a felony. And now, once they come out of prison, they're not able to get into, they have no social mobility at that point. None.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely.
When it comes to addiction, in terms of human beings, I kind of feel that same sickness with us. Because when you're sick and you're addicted to something, you don't have an appreciation for it anymore.
Right.
You need it. So that need turns into abuse. And that's what happened with slavery. There was a need, but I don't appreciate you for who you are, so I'm going to abuse you and use you for my stimulation in every area of my life.
That's constantly.
Say what?
So it constantly happens in almost every industry in the United States as well.
Yeah, so that's an interesting correlation there.
Absolutely.
And how do you deal with an addict who refuses to admit he's an addict?
Wow, that's powerful.
That part.
Yeah.
See why I love them?
Yeah.
That's it.
Speaking of which, how are we conditioned to look at drugs? We have advertisements on television constantly. Pop this pill, you'll get over your anxiety. Pop this pill, you'll go to sleep. Take this, right? So how is it that much different? How are they separating it, right? How are they separating this drug from that drug into saying that you should take this, not that, right? Because these big pharmacy groups are, I guess, dictating these laws. They're also dictating how the medical industry is taught, aren't they?
Well, I mean, think about it like this. Pharmaceutical industries, produce benzos, benzos created a dependence, if you will, on opioid-like medications, which heroin is an opioid an opioid drug. So, well, I think one thing is that one class of drugs the government can make money off of through taxes, through and again, lawmakers being bought by pharmaceutical companies, and the other one they can't.
Yeah.
All about the green.
Right now, I can go outside in my front and make and plant marijuana seeds, and I can grow the shit all day long. And the government can't make it can't make
I'm off it.
That's a problem. But they sign with AstraZeneca that has a new benzo. They can be like, well, yeah, put it through the approval process. That's going to cost you some money. Once it gets approved, we have to regulate and look at every single provider in the country that has a DEA number. That's going to cost them money. So we're getting that money there. And then anytime you make a sale on that drug, guess what? We're going to make some money from that too.
Oh yeah.
If you make it popular enough, we're going to continue to make money. It's a cash grab. I mean, that's what
crazy.
But for me, I'm not saying I do this. I'm not, trying to implicate myself or anything like that. But like, if I'm, planting marijuana and growing it outside of my place, they don't get any money off of that. But we continue to see studies that show that marijuana has beneficial benefits to.
We don't need studies. They know. And we know. Now they're trying to come back out now and say, like,
exactly. Like, oh yeah, well, just know that they can tax it.
Yeah.
But where are those brothers that are still in jail who got arrested for 10 years for having an ounce or a gram in their fucking car? Where are they? They're still in prison. And then we have people getting billions who are getting stocks, paying stocks, buying stocks. Oh yeah. Oh, it's a great thing. Oh my God. Yeah. Marijuana is beautiful. Cannabis is such a healing plant. It's
right, yeah.
Yeah,
all the health food corners and stands and CBD this, CBD that.
I'll be really honest. Hi, everyone. I'm Sandra. Nice to meet you. I just wanted to say thank you. I'm new to this. I'm taking my first little baby steps into being an ally. So thank you very much for inviting me into this so I can have a chance to listen. I just did want to say to follow up with what you were saying, Natalie, is that you'd be surprised. I used to work in these gifting salons for celebrities when they have award shows. You would not believe the amount of cannabis that is there, and this is something that's just thrown into the gift basket along with your new facial routine that they have and the new fashion that they're trying to get you to photograph it. The whole point is to have the celebrity photographed with it, and you make a very valid point that now it's become acceptable. Now it is a way of showing the lifestyle that we should lead, but there are people that are incarcerated and they remain incarcerated. They're waiting, and it's as though people have been forgotten. But just to give more light into the fact that look how it's glorified now, and people have been left behind.
And that is on us for that. And it's not like it's our fault. Like, we just, they kept a lot of information from us for so long that we're slowly catching up to their schemes. Because it's all ideas that they keep selling us because they know better already. It's just the fact that we don't know better yet until after the fact. Like, oh, wait, I got played. Damn.
Right.
And we perpetuate it with that ignorance, because in the South, when I was growing up, we was evil. And I wasn't hearing that from a lot of white people. I was hearing that from a lot of black people. So that we bought into ideas that were not true. And, it's I guess we're in that space now where we're unraveling this stuff so that we can become aware, so that hopefully we become aware enough to see how else they're trying to play us. Like how we got played in California, a year or two ago, when we voted to make marijuana legal, because that gave the government way more money. Now, when you go to a dispensary and spend $5 on the pre-roll, they get 35% of that $5.
Yeah.
Imagine if you spend $100, like they are banking right now.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah. So, but people thought, oh, make it legal so everybody can smoke. It's like, no, look at the game they're trying to play to get that money off of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I voted no, guys. I voted
no.
no.
We voted no. It did work.
We saw And they were like, damn, everybody fell for it.
Yeah.
You know?
Which is funny because, you know, there was so many songs even about legalize it, legalize it, legalize it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So definitely give and take.
So,
and that's the underwriters in a lot of these laws that are passed.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But I think
that is mind blowing if you look at some of the fine print, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, to get back to like, to the original point, that it's a failure. It's a sham. All right, this war on drugs. And what it does is it perpetuates a cycle, because we see people who are nonviolent, low-level offenders, like Natalie was talking about, people who were pulled over and they found an ounce in their car. You're going to jail, dude. Guess what? You got felony drug possession.
That's right.
And if you got more on it, they can slap on felony possession with intent to distribute.
Yep.
Now, you're going to jail with the felony. And when you come out, you have zero social mobility. Zero.
You can't even vote.
Can't vote.
So then what do you do then? You're going to try to find it. You're going to try to find a job wherever you can, but you are going to be in complete and utter poverty the entire time.
Absolutely.
So what do you do?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're in poverty, and especially if you have children, if you have a family you need to provide for, even for yourself you need to provide for, and you talk to one of your old buddies and say, hey man, I can get you a side job. Or hey man, you want to come over and smoke this with me, man? Let's forget our problems for a little bit. Let's just do this. That's the problem, dude. And it continues. It feeds into the prison industrial complex that you talk about, Anthony, and it continues to erode and destroy communities of color, and also I would even say some
completely
white
disproportionately.
That are
completely disproportionately it does.
Yeah, definitely, man. I mean, let's not be kidding. Like, I think that at the root of the whole thing, there was a populist movement in the late 1800s that was seeking to unite recently freed slaves and poor whites together with each other. And the powers that be saw that and saw that couldn't be a thing. So they turned them against each other. That's when you saw a ton of racist rhetoric become born. All right. Mm-hmm. And it continued to funnel up and build up. And, even Martin Luther King talked about this. Dr. King talked about this, dude, that when poor whites work together with communities of color, if they came together, I can't remember his exact words, but he said that they could create a grand alliance together to topple the system that is. And all this divisiveness and all that is manufactured by the man. I think, and by that I mean a small group of, very elite people that have a lot of money, and they have a very, tunnel vision view of what they want this country and even the world to look like. And they have the power to execute it because of that wealth that they have. But they know that in a situation like in America, we have this, this constitutional republic, this democracy, right? That we can gave people the power to vote, right? And people who vote can vote in people that they agree with and vote out people they don't agree with. But if you can splinter people before they even get to the voting booth and make it an us versus them issue before that even happens, you can very easily influence. You're influencing now the voting population. You don't have to worry about the lawmakers. That can come later. If I can convince groups of people that are voting with each other that one group's against the other, I don't even have to worry about the politicians. All I gotta do is take them and their wives on a vacation somewhere in the islands, and that's fine, whatever.
Easy.
I don't have to pay all these people. But if I plant seeds of derision between these groups, and I feel like that's what's happening a lot now. And again, I mean, going back to war on drugs, it's all part of the man's plan. And so, like what you were talking about with certain law reforms, I think that is one of the biggest ones in this country that is ruining the country, is the failed war on drugs. And I mean, it's one of the greatest plans that the man has ever come up with. But I think that a lot of people are waking up now. We talked about, Sandra talked about how it's become kind of more mainstream and more accepted, and I mean, let's not be ridiculous. You know, in the 1920s, they weren't talking about marijuana. I mean, there were those seeds being kind of like sown or whatever, but people weren't worried about the way that they are now, the way that they were, 20 years ago, like when we were little kids.
Liquid heroin.
Right. Yeah. When we were kids, you used to think that people who smoke weed were like, man, they have dinner with the devil. They're terrible.
Right.
The devil's lettuce.
The devil's lettuce.
It's literally a name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Which is funny because even in the 20s and everything like that, heroin you could buy over the counter.
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah.
It was
The original Coca-Cola had Coke in it.
Coke in it, literally.
It's in the name.
Well-known fact.
Right.
Coke.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just to kind of tap back though, with word verbiage.
Mm-hmm.
So with crack, when it was real prevalent back in the 80s,
Which I'm waiting for that to be let out, that the U.S. government put that into the communities.
Oh, of course. Reagan
Right.
was over that shit. But
100%.
what was the verbiage about crack then, though?
Mm.
Epidemic, right? It was looked at as bad.
Mm.
But now, even you used it, right? Opioid.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Crisis means no.
We
We gotta help.
Politicians are the greatest spin doctors of words.
Mm-hmm.
But that's part of that programming. We know what these words mean, and if we're applying it to these things, and it's going to certain demographics, it's looked at differently.
Right.
But what is that? What is that programming? It's a fear, and that fear comes from genetic survival.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've seen speeches from generals from the Confederacy that said if you give Black people power, that is the annihilation of the white race.
Mm.
So that's where all these fears, which then turns into rules, which turn into abuse, which turns into lies. Like, I'm just trying to survive, even though nobody's trying to kill me, because I'm in fear that if you become in power, then that's going to be the end of me. So when you have a crisis going on, I'm going to call it awful because I want to see you burn a little bit. Mm-hmm. But when it happens to me, I'm going to say, help me, because I need some extra help.
Right.
It sounds like it's all that narcissism, man. It's like it's bad when somebody else is doing it. Mm-hmm. You don't take no accountability for yourself and like what you're doing because you're too afraid to face yourself, So
absolutely. Yeah. And I think that goes back to this conditioning that we see, this this egocentric thought process too. Mm-hmm. That gets put out there. This push of the conditioning through materialistic things that feeds the ego, that grows the ego out of proportion. Right? Hold on, Jens. That really skews mindsets to not uniting, right? To not using empathy, not using sympathy, not using compassion, right? That being, and that even being ostracized itself, right? As, oh, you being a simp, or how can you relate? I don't like that mindset either, of how can you relate? Because when you say that, you close the door to letting people in.
I think that, but I think that like a lot of that, and I was talking with somebody about this a little bit earlier, and it's that when you're told that your experience is invalid for so long, I mean, not just like in your own lifetime, literal decades and centuries.
Exactly.
Your experience is not valid. Your experience doesn't matter. The way the world is, and whatever you're saying, you're just essentially when people, say, because this whole situation it's not new. Community
Absolutely not. We've had conversations in high school about this, Ethan. You know, and well before I was born, this shit was going on. You know what I mean?
The communities of color have been talking about since before any of us were born. All right, this is ancient history in our country, right? This is like foundational stuff.
This is the foundation. That's the problem.
Exactly.
That's the problem. It is the foundation. Which leads me to my next topic that I want to jump on, because we're spending a lot of time, you know, rightfully so, on a lot of these topics. Reparations. I want to talk about reparations. So I had some thoughts about this. This is just my thoughts and opinions. Take it for what you will, right? So for me, I think that America has built the foundation on the biggest sin that, we all know it's there, but we don't want to address, right? To heal, right? The country has to admit it first and foremost, right? And I think in a form of admittance should be reparations. And I think personally, an idea that came to my head was there should be, it should come in the form of interest rates for loans on education. And I think this should be across the board 1.5% interest for education, for land ownership, for mortgages, buying houses, and small business loans. Because ownership and equity is unbelievably important, right? And when that's taken away, especially, somebody gets in the washing machine of the industrial prison complex, right? And that's taken away. And this should be, no matter what law you broke, or that should be just across the board, clean. That's what it is. 1.5% interest on all of those things, right? And available to, all African-American people, right? I think that could really turn the tide for the displacement of wealth, in this country, and the thought of ownership, the thought of, equity and everything else. And the opportunity for education, I think, in the loans that are there, right? That's a whole nother cycle. I'm still paying a ridiculous amount of loans. That's a whole nother cycle, which we could talk about, I think, on a later date. But what are your thoughts on all of that?
Bob Johnson, who used to own BET, he said we should get reparations in the sum of $7 trillion. If it happens,
rightfully so. I think rightfully so, but I don't think that laws will be passed because it's like, where's it going to come from? Where the taxes, blah, 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 blah.
Right. So if it happens, great. I expect them to do that, knowing that if they did do that, then that would be the end of their power. I just don't see that happening. But I see us taking our own reparations in the form of something as simple as not being exploited anymore. Because again, like I said in the beginning of the conversation, we're the most valuable product on the market on the planet.
Yeah.
And when we realize that and we sell ourselves versus like letting somebody else sell us, then we'll have trillions of dollars a year, because trillions of dollars are spent every year on Black people, but the money don't go to Black people.
Right.
So we just need to be in control of ourselves and not let anybody tell us, like get rid of these ideas in the NBA, like ownership. I own players and I got the right to trade you, and it's still that same slave.
Oh, absolutely. And I hate to say this, and somebody said this when I was watching the draft and the NFL Combine, and they were comparing it to basically like the slave trade.
That's
And
what
like,
it is.
when I heard that, I watched it, and it's like,
it's literally a visual of what was going on.
It's a visual, yeah.
At picnics, you got these big, strong men, and you're saying, which one can I get the most bang for my buck? Well, this one right here, he got 7 years on his career, but he can still get rebounds for you. The same way they were saying, well, this one 50 years old, but he still got good knees, so he might be good for you on that barn. It's the same thing. It just looks a little prettier because they gave us a check.
Right.
It's amazing those athletes up there don't recognize that. They got your
They don't recognize it. If
I see that check.
If they said we're not playing another game until we see the whole system change, it will work.
Yes.
Man, they start their own league.
You can't.
Yes.
You can't recreate another LeBron James. That don't exist nowhere else.
Right.
It can be done. We can start our own league.
Yeah.
I see was 3-on-3, and they taking some of his rules and trying to apply it to the NBA.
Yeah, I saw that. Which I was an advocate for watching the 3-on-3 league.
They love what
league, yeah.
we do and what we bring. They know the value of us.
Oh, absolutely. They're like, oh, this guy's got great ideas. Let me
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And I sell it back to
no
you.
credit for that either.
Exactly.
Can't get no check for that. Can't go get no recognition for that. You know what I'm saying?
What's he gonna do? What's he gonna do? Get a lawyer and then start a lawsuit against the NBA?
That's what it's gonna be. That's what it always is.
Yeah.
You know, and also, it ain't just America that owe us money. The whole world owe us. The whole world.
That part.
Well, if you look back at history too, we all were born from there. The first human was
Africa.
found in South Africa, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also, even during the slave trade, the builders of Europe came from Africa. The builders of Asia were imported from Africa. The builders of South America, Mexico were imported from Africa. So everywhere you see a civilization, it got some of my blood in it. So if we want to talk about reparations, I need to get a check from everybody. But since we're not trying to do that, it's like, let's just become aware of ourselves, and then we'll be getting the value that we know we should have because we've already realized that value within ourselves. And then the system and then society can keep going because, you know, I don't know. I just ended there.
No, I think that's well said, and I think you can summarize it in the way of self-sufficiency being the ultimate power. You know, in an active way, and turning that self-sufficiency into an active thing is something that, you know, is hard to take away from you.
They took
I
it.
think a combination
But they have taken it away.
Self-sufficiency was in Tulsa and Rosewood when they snatched
Black
them
Wall
off the
Street.
face of the damn planet because they didn't want them being self-sufficient. That I think would be one of the best things we could do to be self-sufficient. Build our own. Maybe not necessarily.
Why don't you come in?
Like, they can hear me. May not hear you.
No, she can hear you.
It can hear you. I see your face to hear you. Come on in.
Hey, Jen.
Give us some light. Give us some light.
Hey, girl, give us all of that.
The whole
We'll just do a little
how they
Neil
took
situation.
how they wiped Tulsa off the face of the planet. That's right. We don't. I don't want to say we don't need to build our own city. We don't need to market it that way. But you got all these athletes, all this damn money. Michael Jordan finally decided to give back after everybody bought up all your damn shoes in the hood. But now you want to give back some.
Which I wish.
Over the span of a decade.
I wish my Brit was on right now. He has so much to say about that.
Jordan was a little slow on the uptake on that, but whatever. Better late than never. Right. But that's one of the things you could do between him, LeBron, Kobe's estate, P. Diddy, he trying to do his thing, Jay-Z, all of them, everybody trying to do their own thing. All of that, they could very easily, who was it? Steph Curry and P. Diddy was talking about buying the Panthers. I don't know what happened with that, but that kind of felt that we need a black owner in the NFL.
All the damn players is black. I don't understand how you got what, 4 black coaches in that whole league?
Were there any black slave masters?
I guess
slave owners in America.
Couple.
Well,
there was a couple.
There's a slave owner that, you know.
There's some in there always.
I know the history, but
just to make my point, right? But
yeah.
But like I'm saying, like if we would all, especially in California, rather than stacking us up on top of each other like plates after Thanksgiving, eventually that shit's gonna topple over and it's gonna crash. Instead of doing that, you got all that land between everybody in Vegas, between here and Barstow, between Barstow and Las Vegas. You got all of that land, the Antelope Valley, all of that land. Build that up. Build up a new Tulsa, and in all of these states and these cities, you have all this vacant land, and they claim we're overpopulated. We're overpopulated because you're putting us all in the same damn spot. Expand. You got all this land. Use it. Build it up out there. That could be our new Tulsa. We got our own police stations. We got our own grocery stores, our own hospitals, our own IDOT, all of that. Do all of that. Don't market it that way, because the second you say, well, this is predominantly for black people, they're going to find a way to weasel their asses in there.
Burn that shit down.
And burn that shit to the ground. They're going to find a way to do that, but start that. Do it on the DL if you have to, but start something like that and slowly have people start going out there. You get your own doctors, your own surgeons, your own IDOT, everybody, you get them all out there, and you build up that way. They ain't going to give us nothing, which has been proven. They are not going to give us nothing. They ain't going to make it easy for us to get nothing. I remember my grandmother moved out there from Chicago in 73. She tried to get a loan for her house just to build some things. They rejected her for a $5,000 loan. Punk ass $5,000 loan. We know why they did. Bank of America back in the day, they got hit for denying black people loans, small, simple loans. They ain't going to give you nothing. You got to take it. You have the means already. You got all these athletes with all this money. You want to give back to the community. Thank you, LeBron, for the school in Akron and whatever else he did. Thank you, Jordan, with your late ass for finally giving back. It's all kind of stuff they could do. I mean, I get it's easy for me to say they can do this. I ain't the one with the money. It's easy for me to say that. But y'all want to make a difference in your communities. You are not just athletes. You ain't going to just shut up and play. You want to do something. This is something you can do. Everybody keep talking about, you just an athlete, be quiet. But Drew Brees say the shit, oh, he has an opinion. He matters. He don't matter no more than the rest of them if that's the way you want to play it. Right. But because they are figureheads in their communities. They are people that young kids look up to. Do a little more with the assets that you have. That we as regular people, unfortunately, we can't afford to help build the damn community, but we can move in it once it's built. We can help keep it clean. We can help grow the community. We can help establish it in different ways outside of giving massive amounts of money to it. But that's how we can take back, and we can start on. We can be self-sufficient, because I'm sure there's communities out there like that now, but there's only so much they're given, especially if they got to ask the government for it. Because when they find out, oh, this is a black person, this is a predominantly black community, let's tie them up in this loan. Let's make it real difficult for them to get this. Let's draw this shit out until they lose interest and they don't want it anymore.
That's why I think the reparations, specifically on those interest rates, and it being illegal to deny those, would really turn the tide of power.
I think if they helped make it, if they stopped making it so difficult for us to get the things in the first place. Stop making it so who got hit for it? Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, whatever them mortgage companies.
Just bailed the fuck out like
them, but they got hit because they were making it so difficult for minorities to get the loans. And then when they were getting them, when the housing market flipped, a lot of people that were losing their homes was the black folks, because they gave you shit that they knew you couldn't afford.
The variable interest rate loans,
they knew they were gonna come snatch that
all
back
that bullshit.
Yeah.
That Bush put into play, that Obama made illegal. Right, got rid of all of that as soon as he got in office, and then the first day, because Jen and I were looking for a condo.
Oh, Trump did that. Yeah,
Trump first day.
Yeah,
this is a lot of the stuff, his circus show and everything like that he puts in front of you. The first day he got in office, took away those loans.
He took away. Yeah, he made it more difficult for you to get home loans with lower percentages, I think. But yeah,
I ain't surprised, but I'm surprised. But I'm not surprised.
He's a landlord, right? That's what he was originally. So that's first day in office.
He didn't want people that look like us in his places.
Yeah.
No, I mean there's literally a history of it. Yeah. It's printed in paper.
He flat out said that.
Yeah.
That's my 25 cents, Natalie. I'm out. I see y'all.
Oh, come on. Drop it.
I need another quarter.
Yeah, exactly. Let me get that
quarter. That image that was just on camera, that's not the whole solution, but that's part of a solution as well.
With them too?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Look what y'all created together.
Projects here.
That baby got beautiful melanin.
Man.
That's right.
It's hard.
I wish a little bit more so we
being
could
racist
sunburn.
when you look at the skin, it's brown like everybody else.
Like, dang, we out here in California, man. You know, he needs a little bit more than that shit.
But the ideas of racism and hatred coming from whether like going to the root of where that comes from, like ancient times, there was no such thing as white people. No. That was an idea that came later that made people feel like they need to be empowered over somebody else.
Yeah, what is a white person anyways, really?
Yeah.
Are you a European person from what different?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like the whole idea of that's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Hailing from the Caucasus Mountains. Quote unquote, white people created the idea of white people. They created the idea of black people. They created the idea of South America. You know.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
a hyphen in it. Without a hyphen, right?
Yeah. No, I mean that's a legitimate. I remember a lecture by an anthropologist from UC, and he said, he was talking about, the thing is with like different races, people think of races, but there's no real there's no biological races. That's not a thing. He's like, we're all.
It's a distraction.
Right.
It's a distraction for control. That's what race is.
Right. And I mean, he went on to talk about, different studies that talked about, the statistical differences between what we call races. And there's a test that, you can look at the analysis of variance is what it's called. And he said, when you look at different races, we can see that there are less differences between groups than there are within a group.
Of course.
If you control for the things that are within a group, there are less differences between the things between the different groups than there are within the group, right? So, I mean, it's really mind-boggling. And again, I think it all boils down to, I know I sound a little bit conspiracy theorist, but like there is and I hate to like even,
You go ahead and say it.
I don't know. I hate to even quote, there are different scriptures, right? All throughout the world or whatever. But like, we are probably all most familiar with the Bible. And it talks about different principalities that are at work, right? That are in the world working towards something that is not good. And like, I think that principality for us is there's an elite in this country, in the world.
That used to be conspiracy theory, but it's proven fact now. It's not like a maybe.
Well, check this out. What's the definition of conspiracy? The definition, if you Google it, says a quiet, private, secret group who has ill intent to do harm.
Dude, and they are here. They have been here. And I mean, I think that they're the cause behind a lot of the shit that we deal with nowadays. But like, we have to wake each other up to that. And I think that is, one of the most important goals that we can have, as the people right now, is to wake up each other, try to get each other, because they know they can't beat us all. But if they can put us against each other, they don't have to worry about beating us all.
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I'm saying? So
it's art of war tactics.
Right. It's psychological.
Straight up Sun Tzu. Art of war tactics is what they're implementing.
100%.
Mind control.
Of course.
Yeah. And
Which is
funny though, just to hit on just like conspiracy theories and what we finding out.
We'll have a whole nother episode of that is going to be great. I'm looking forward to
what I'm saying is that at December 31st, 2019, 11:59, I said, here comes, Happy New Year. I said, oh shit, 2020, that clear vision.
Oh, God. Yeah, you're right.
We got it. Oh, we are definitely 2020 vision. We are seeing
interesting.
We are seeing what it really is and what we are really thought, what people really think about us and how it's treated. And the world is now seeing, right?
And they're reacting too. They're reacting and they're protesting.
We thought perfect vision. We thought 2020 vision was like, oh yeah, it's gonna be beautiful. I'm gonna see my dreams. Like, nah, the universe, like, nah, I'm gonna show you exactly.
Show you reality here.
Right.
Boom.
Right.
What you gonna do with that? What you gonna do with
Yeah.
it?
Sandra, I'd like to hear from you. You know, we've been talking a lot. I know you're just absorbing and what are your thoughts on this?
Oh my goodness. To be really frank, I like I mentioned before, I'm very new. My goal is to listen. My goal is to listen as much as possible, because the reality of it is that there's too many people who have spoken for the Black community. Didn't ask for that, and it's really evident. Jan and I have had many conversations, and we continue to have many conversations, and I try really hard to understand.
Not the freezing.
Video freeze.
Not in the freezing at the good part.
It's free. I know.
The good part. So
there you go. You're back.
Am I back? Okay.
Yeah, you're back.
What I was saying is that although I'm a woman of color, my experience is going to be different from that of what Jana has experienced. One in which we went to we went to the same university together. We went to.
Oh Lord, girl.
Stories there.
I'm heated. I'm heated
about that, and she has a right to be. But just comparing. So.
Where did you guys go again?
We went to
Stanford University.
And then University.
I'm calling names.
But we had
And then we went to UAB together. Yeah, it was random. So it's our story, but we'll share another. You didn't ask us for that.
So go ahead and tell it.
Yeah, no, please.
You want to know how we met?
Yeah.
You want to, Sandra? You tell it best because you talk about me with the anime and
Stanford University is a university in Alabama that it's a private university, Baptist affiliated.
EWI. Let's put that out.
It is
private white institute. Yeah.
They do very much live in a bubble. Very different experiences there. But we did believe in one thing, which was they live in a very closed community. So the first time I met Jana is that we were both commuting to the university. Like we didn't live on campus, obviously, and I remember she was one of the only people who was very friendly and outgoing. And the conversation was literally, have you guys seen that episode of Inuyasha? Can you sing the songs in Japanese? Because I can, ready, watch. And then she just bursts out into song in Japanese. And immediately I knew, I'm going to be friends with this girl. I'm going to be friends with this girl. And it's been, goodness, more than a decade that we've been friends. But my goal, to answer your question, Anthony, is that my goal is to listen. My goal is to listen because, again, I am a woman of color, but it's not my experience. And I want to listen to Jana's experience. I want to know what's going on because it feels like my friends are in the ocean and I'm on a boat and they're asking for someone to throw a lifesaver. So I'm trying to do my part and to understand what's going on and how can I help.
Awesome. Thank you for saying that. Brandon, are we did we lose you there, buddy?
So I'm here.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
I just want to point out that she helps a lot. She helps me a lot. So just let me put that in there. So don't feel like you're not doing anything or that you don't have great perspective or that your voice doesn't matter in this conversation, because it does. So, because you do the little things, I think, that add up, like offering me housing, just like little points. Get emotional about it. Actually, woo. Okay, but she does,
Good friends.
Allow it to happen, Jana. Don't apologize for it. It's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think that.
Oh, sorry. I thought she was.
I'm through.
I think the ultimate solution, to be honest, is self-love. And the more that we all individually manifest that, since we do have intuition, or we have the divine spark of God, or whatever you would like to identify it as inside of you, the answer will reveal itself once you learn how to love yourself. Mm-hmm. So if we just continue to not start off by trying to say, oh, I love people, do it in here so that you can really hear yourself, and then let that voice that's inside you, wherever you feel that passion leads you, whether you know, my passion leads me toward educating people, or my passion leads me to serving people, or my passion leads me to like help people with, you know, their vision. You know, let your spirit lead you, you know, out of love. And I think that's the message for all of us, you know.
Absolutely. Joseph Campbell used to say, "Follow your bliss." I think that's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
I've been saying this too, because I don't know if I'm off topic a little, but I mean, like, I've noticed, like, sometimes, like, when specifically in the Black community, some of these celebrities or whatever have tried to speak out, and they'll say the wrong thing, but you can kind of read through, but we're all kind of angry, we're tired, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the verbiage
and some of the verbiage is getting lost because they're not speakers. It's not their gift, you know what I mean? For instance, like Obama, he's a speaker. He's really good at it. When he speaks, you listen. And then there are people who that's just not their gift. Maybe they do play basketball, but that doesn't mean that they can't help the community in ways that are their gift. Like, if you got money, open your purse. You know what I mean? Maybe that's better for you to do. I like to cook. I wouldn't mind, like, if we have a protest, cooking for the protesters. That's the way I can contribute. I don't know if I'm not really good at organizing, so it wouldn't be my best or my strongest strength to try to organize a protest. So that's something I've been kind of like saying, like, everybody, if you look at it as a church, everybody in the ministry has the things that they're doing to make the church whole. You know, the whole community, each person in the community contributes in some way. So I think, you know, that has been kind of my perspective too, to be, I guess, a bit forgiving to some people when they, you know, show their butt a little bit, to an extent. You know, some of them, you got to read them, you know, and then, you know, put them to bed nice, you know, just, you know, yeah, do read them. But, you know, I still think we have to, like, it's what I'm talking about is a bit of the cancel culture. You know, I think sometimes,
that's
right.
Sometimes we go a little wild with it, you know.
Because we're still emotionally triggered.
Yeah, we're emotional. Everybody's emotional. I'm enraged. I've been mad at everybody, and I try to, like, just cut off the internet because I don't want to, like, lash out at everybody. I want to, like, kind of sit with my emotions and figure out how I really feel before I say something sometimes, you know. So, but when I see stuff, you're just like, what did you say that out loud? You know what I mean? So I've kind of learned to sit back and kind of like, okay, let's see where they're coming from. What were their experiences that brought them to this point? You know what I mean? Specifically more so in the community first, and then outwardly, I would say, because, you know, we're being affected. I think, I don't want to say the most, yeah. I'd say the most right now. I mean, in regards to the racism and inequality.
Ain't no thank you, no. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it touches bases on what you're talking about, where you said, you know, I know how to cook. This is what I do. You know, I'm not necessarily the leader to get my bullhorn to be out there with the speech.
Yeah.
Everybody has a role. You know what I mean? So I don't think that anybody should compare themselves to the next man and say, dang, I can't organize no protests, so I guess I just ain't gonna do nothing. No, it's okay. Get with the people that do know how to organize a protest and say, how can I help? What do I need to do? Actually, this is what I can do. This is what I can bring to the table. So does that fit into what y'all doing? Okay, cool. You know, Brandon may not be the but he's gonna be the most right? I'm gonna break some stuff down for you that maybe you didn't even see how you could have looked at it from the beginning. Everybody has a role. Everybody has a role.
Absolutely.
It's about learning your role and sitting in that. That's how you can definitely be impactful with this whole cause and movement right now. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Amongst other things, of course. But yeah, go ahead. No, you can.
When, you know, we wrote those things on the wall yesterday during the end of the protest, the thing that I wrote up there was, action is needed now, follow your bliss. And I think that whatever that is how you should express it. You know what I mean? Don't have other people dictate to tell you how you should react.
Yeah.
Because that's another type of conditioning and type of control that you're forcing on somebody else.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I had been
that's
kind of
the poison
noticing
right
is that people are trying to dictate a bit of how people respond, and we're all traumatized. Like, this is trauma we're dealing with.
Yeah.
And everybody responds to trauma and grief differently.
Absolutely.
So we have to, be compassionate to each other in that area. Like me and my friend, one of my friends who's an essential worker right now, so she's dealing with the COVID and she has to deal with the racism and every other thing, or being one of the few Black people in her company, and it's a lot, you know what I mean? We're just drained, and sometimes we just don't even want to talk, you know what I mean? And so that's how we're, sometimes we're responding. So I've been telling friends and saying, hey, that's okay. You want to get into my Disney account and watch a movie? Like, go for it. What do you need? In this moment, girl, you want a spa day? Where if y'all open, with the COVID, if you're open for a spa day, look, can I send you a gift card or whatever? You know what I mean? If I could just do something small to give you a mental break, because we're all collectively traumatized.
Yeah. Which actually makes me want to kind of jump onto our next topic, brands and influencers.
Oh my God.
Speaking of kind of controls and interest and, influence, really.
These photo ops, using these hashtags to promote their brands, this template letter that's been going around through corporations. Open your purse, hire Black people in your company, and not everybody wants to start a business. You can say that.
Right.
When we look at the roster there, and there's one person trying to fight for everybody, that's not going to work. We need diversity in those rooms, and not just because they're Black, but because they matter. I think that's a small thing that should have been done, and it goes into kind of when we're talking about reparations. And I think that if we were paid properly, we wouldn't need loans. Maybe we'd be able to save money. I do think we have to have education about finances and all those things. It's very important. But if we could really save, we'd have generational wealth, and that's a big thing for me right now. I want generational wealth. I want to be able to pass things down, whether I decide to have children or not, But back to the brand, I've been pissed. Sandra's been like, Tana, okay, calm down, Tana. Don't let the chopper swing. But I kind of, I've been trying not to yell and scream at certain bands, specifically as being, I know you're in the entertainment industry too, Natalie, and Sandra. Companies that I have,
we have 3 SAG actors in here.
Yeah, so it's like seeing their response hurts me, because I've worked for you and my face is on the line as well. I feel like I've represented you when I do these ads, these print ads, these different commercials, and my face is up there as your Black representative. So you've used me as your magical Negro here. I'm going to say that, you know what I mean? You put me out there, and I feel like I've been shucking and jiving. And I'm battling. I know the industry is opening back on June 12th, they're saying, and I'm battling about going into those rooms right now. What am I going to experience? Like, is it going to be some real change? When the client comes in for my callback, who am I going to be looking at? A majority of white people when the commercial is supposed to be blackity black? Like, what is going to be my experience? Like, I'm trying to protect my mental health here too. So it's the microaggression that is really, adding up on me. That's what's building up. It's like, we're going to say, oh, we're so sorry, and we're going to give 100 million or whatever to the NAACP, but I don't know where that money is going personally. I don't know. Maybe I can do some more research and figure it out, but I don't know if it's going into my pocket or my community, you know what I mean? Or if any of my Black friends or whatever are going to get that and experience or feel the change. So that's been just some of the things, like the influencers with their narcissistic complexes or whatever, who want to do a photo shoot and say, hey, I was part of the movement, or look how excited this is, but don't really care whether we receive any equality or if any system is changed. And I've just been so mad, even to schools, you know what I mean? Because your school was a representation of you as well, that have posted their little letters. And I'm just like, I think one of the things, like, I've been just kind of in shock as I'm realizing more and more how much systematic oppression has affected me personally. So, yeah.
What happens when we're stuck inside too during COVID and have to do that self-reflection? You remember a lot of the things, right, that you experienced, and you look back at those situations and everything that you've been through and say, "Oh wow, that was not what I was experiencing at the time, but now that I notice it and I see that, this is..."
Getting a little time to reflect can actually have a big influence on how you feel the situation.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Just little things. Like, I wrote a paper in school. I can't remember the teacher's name to call him out, in Sanford. And I chose, because during that time, for me, what was affecting me being, I had been in predominantly Black schools my whole life up until college. So going there was a cultural shock to me, that it was a majority white school. There was Sandra, you know, as the brown person. And that was like, maybe all the Black people were athletes. You had a couple who were just, you know, students or whatever on scholarship or whatever the case. But, you know, it was, I chose to write a paper in this, I think it was Cultural Perspectives, which is the irony of the class being called Cultural Perspectives. But I was very adamant about writing a paper from a Black writer during the period. So I think the writer was maybe a slave or something, I don't know. But my teacher kept making suggestions, like, maybe you should, you know, pick this. And I was like, no, I'm gonna write about this. This is what I'm gonna do, you know? And I took the paper. There's like a resource center, it's called like what was it called?
Writing center or something like that?
I don't
resource,
recall,
something resource center. Yeah, so you could, it's like off-duty teachers, like your English teachers or senior students will volunteer their time to help read your papers and correct any errors, which was also something that I didn't experience with systematic oppression until I got there. You know what I mean? Like, I never even had that.
It was called the Writing Center for us.
Yeah, we didn't have that in high school or
anything like that. That's
what I'm saying. This is just a small thing that reminded me of systematic oppression.
That's
and
for us. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's just those resources. And so anyway, I took my paper. They were like, yeah, you're a great writer. This is good. You know, let's just fix, you know, they fine-tuned it for me. I'm really confident about my paper. I turn my paper in. The teacher gives me a D. He says, I just don't like it. So that's just one experience at that school, you know. That was personal, you know.
And now, Jana, did he or she...
Up to yourself, bam. Basically. Go ahead. Sorry, Sandra.
No, you're cool. Did he or she even give a reason? Was there ever even you know how in the margins they will write?
That was the writing on the margins.
The writing on the margins was,
it's just not good. I don't like it. It's just not good. But I take it, you know, it wasn't like I just like put it together and felt like I didn't do a good job or knew I didn't do a good job. I took that paper to get it proofread, you know, proofread and everything.
Took your time
and
with
he just told me I don't like it. It wasn't good.
And when you took it to the dean, what did they say?
I did not take it to the dean. I wish I had, looking back on the situation, but at the time, I think a lot of this stuff was so, I was really struggling with an identity issue. I was having an identity crisis at the time. looking back on it too, because I was just kind of like, I don't know if I
do
didn't want to
during college
believe.
too. I mean, that's not uncommon. I don't feel.
I don't think I was, I didn't want to believe it, or it was just kind of like so many little things like that were happening that I was almost just like, maybe I was delusional. Maybe the paper wasn't good. And so it was kind of creating this self-esteem issue as well, where I was just like, I'm probably not as good as I think. I can't. I was literally like in my head too saying, I can't compete with these white kids. I'm coming from this environment into this environment with all of this wealth and opportunity, that they have. You know what I mean? So like that was kind of
that they have been instilled in us and within themselves.
Yep.
That's all that is.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. So.
Wow.
It's not true. It's not true. That's not the way that it is.
Absolutely.
Not the way it is.
You probably outdid everybody in your class.
Right.
Yeah, I had a friend who had an experience like that. A guy had a psychotic break and called her and told her, "You're smarter than all." She also went to the school. I hope she's okay with me sharing. I'll just share this. Maybe edit it out. I don't know. But she had a guy who had a psychotic break, and he called her in his psychotic break and told her that she was smarter than them. And you know what I mean? He was like, I don't like white people. I mean, he was like, I don't like black people. He was white, a guy. And he was having a whole psychotic break, and called her while having it. And he told her, like, you're smarter than all, you're smarter than us. And she was just like, during the time, she was like struggling, because it was very much that I got to study twice as hard to, that meant, that whole thing. And it was true in a sense, because some of the books that we had were, which I realized this from talking to someone, mother who was raised in like the 50s and 60s. And she was telling me about her books having like stamps in them that said the property of another school, which were second editions, and maybe we're on the third edition book, you know what I mean? So I remembered having books like that too. And this is generations apart. Like, this is my friend's mom who's like in her 60s maybe, you know what I mean? So that was just another thing that like came up recently, and I was like, man, look how long we've been oppressed and not given these resources and these things that just are so small that could change. Like our education, we're going to take that away, which is not new, you know what I mean? But just when you're in your 30s, like I'm in my 30s, so at the time, and you just don't think,
I think we all are in here.
You don't think that your generation is experiencing that the same way as your mom's experiences or your grandma's experiences. And then it's just like, wow, y'all are really, really, really still doing this,
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course. Because it's
effective, it's been effective. Like,
it's going to keep going until we break that damn foundation and that cycle.
If there's no checks and balances too, to get away with it, why wouldn't they?
Right.
The checks and balances group look just like the people you checking and balancing.
Right.
Where are we gonna go with this?
Right.
Gotta keep going.
Redlining to figure out, about disparities between, communities of color getting, even simple loans, and I mean, that's a real phenomenon. Like what you were talking about, Cook, with the whole idea of, the 1.5 interest rate for, college loans for small business.
I know I said education. I meant all education.
Okay, well, look, this is the thing. The top two indicators of social mobility in this country have been traditionally your education, having a college degree, and home ownership, being able to own your home. So when you screw with people's ability to do that, you absolutely are positively having influence on their ability to move up in class, right? And if we think about, like, if a group of individuals is sitting and living in, and this goes to tie those two ideas together, redlining and the idea of home ownership, when you have communities of color that are considered because of redlining, because the banks decide this is a poor investment area, right? Property values in those areas will go down. And like what Janet was talking about, when you're in a public school, a lot of your school's funding comes from the property value in your community.
Absolutely.
If you have low property value in your community, guess what? Your school isn't going to get the new books. They're not going to get computers. They're not going to get. Kids know these things. They pick up on things. They're able to see that
the teachers aren't going to get paid as much.
Yeah, they're able to see that the kid that that they talk to at the park every now and then or whatever. Yeah, they got Billy has they said they got computers at their school. They got iPads. They're able to do all this stuff. And it sets a mental precedent inside of your own mind that maybe we just aren't worth those things. And that comes, dude, and that hits hard, and it follows you all the way up through your schooling and into your adulthood, dude. That maybe you shouldn't have the nicest things.
It's embedded in us.
Yeah, maybe they are better than us. Maybe, but it's like doing drugs. It's a sham, dude. It's a lie. It's been engineered that way.
Absolutely.
It's been engineered that way.
Absolutely. And I think the idea of intelligence is also this kind of like competitive, nebulous thing. Here's the thing. Everybody is capable of being intelligent at individual things. It just takes people sometimes longer, right? Some people have better retention than others in certain areas. And then other people are very quick-witted, right? Can react and solve things very quickly, right? Intelligence is a lot more nebulous. And that's the whole argument that a lot of people always like weaponize, right? Is, oh, this group of people has less intelligence than them. And starting that whole competition is so stupid because everybody's capable. I mean, it's not like our brains are very different, right? It has over 1 trillion different cells in them, right? So all of us are individually different.
Right.
So how can you group people, and then how can you say that they're capable of this, not that, right?
And I think it is important to show that, I can't cite any specific studies off the top of my head right now, but I have never read a study on any kind of, and you look at, tests of intelligence and measures of intelligence, even when you control
all opinion. There
is no statistically significant study that shows that any, and again, this goes back to that anthropologist from UC, there's no such thing as races of people, but if you want to go ahead and put them in, do it. Each race of people, there's not a statistically significant study that shows that one race is any more intelligent than the other. There's individual differences in between all those races. So it's not a thing to talk about one race being more intelligent than the other or being better at a certain thing than the other. It's just, it's what raw materials are you given? Every human being has baseline intelligence, I feel like. Now, some people, look, not everybody's going to be Einstein. The guy was on a different planet, right? But, we all have a baseline intelligence, and given the same, that's the entire idea of the public school system, is that given the same raw materials in terms of education, we can produce a society that is filled with intelligent people that can solve problems, that can do work, and that can build up our society. So I think that that's something that, we should think about. But, again, we were talking about with disparities in education, those have an impact. And when you have people who are not either not conscious of those disparities or choose to willfully ignore them, they're able to push an agenda, and that agenda is often negative for communities of color. So, I'm not buying this shit, dude. It's all bullshit. All of that is bullshit. And, like you said, with your interest rate idea, that could help with, home ownership and with, the abolition of redlining and things and other similar practices can help with those situations, but it's going to take time. But what Brandon was talking about, the first thing is that we have to love ourselves, you know, and realize that we are worth something, that we are important, and that, you know, we do have the same level of potential inside of us that any other person or any other group of people has. That's super duper important.
Not only that, the potential being there, but the will, right? Mm-hmm. Because some people, you know, it was going to take longer, but if their will and their patience is there, they can get to that level of intelligence or whatever, you know, level of skill or anything like that. But it just takes an unbelievable amount of persistence.
I think with the understanding that you have the potential, that will comes, but it's from, you know, microaggressions and, you know, even being explicitly told, you're not good at this thing. Mm-hmm. You might not be good at math, but by the sweat of your brow, you can learn math. I know you can.
Yes.
Because I did it. All right. You can learn any kind of math that you want if you were willing to put in the work for it.
Yeah.
And just because you might not be as skilled at it as you are at some other, you know, some other discipline of study doesn't mean anything. I mean, it's just, you know, some people get things better at certain paces. And, you know, we talked about how some people are good at, you know, some people are good at thing A or thing B. But personally, I believe, and this might be my disagreement, I think that human beings are at baseline able to do anything they put their minds to, whether you're white, you know, Hispanic, Asian, doesn't matter. If you have an interest in something, you want to do something, you can do the thing. Like, it doesn't matter. So maybe that's where I'm kind of deviating from the group. But I mean, I feel that, you know, as human beings, you know, we are united in our ability to have potential that is, you know, something that can't be, it's not calculable. It's not something that, you know, like, this person only has this much potential for this. Mm-hmm. That crap, man. That's again a false narrative that is thrust on us by people in power that want to keep us where we are and not to try to rise up and do something else.
Exactly. But I think, even to your point, the more like-minded people with the same agenda unite, mm-hmm. the possibility of that thing that you're going after, that possibility of that thing you're trying to achieve, exponentially increases.
Oh yeah, 100%, man.
Right? But that's why they try to keep you distracted. That's why all the conditioning and everything like that is happening.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they're comfortable in their society. They're comfortable with their controls. They're comfortable with the way they live life, and they don't want it to change at all, right? They want their power to just continue to grow, right? Because they get a little bit, you know, satiated with just the bit that they have, and then just comes.
I mean, it goes back to, like, you know, our evolved psychology. Human beings are, you know, super, just like all other animals, self-interested. And, you know, if you burrow all the way down, you know, we want to replicate our genes. You know, like the author Richard Dawkins said, you know, we are, as a species, we're just gene machines. You know, we are slaves to the replicators, what he called in his book. You know, the replicators want to make copies of themselves, and they're going to do whatever it takes to do it. And in our terms, you know, for a dolphin, it might be, you know, sabotaging some other group of dolphin that are, you know, hunting a group of fish and, you know, taking their fish from them or whatever. You can think about all these other different examples from the animal kingdom, but the ones that matter for us is, you know, resource acquisition and keeping those resources. And for us human beings, the most valuable resource is money. And the more of it you have, the more influence that you have over other human beings, because they're going to follow you. Just like, you know, we're talking about celebrity and influencers. What makes a person a celebrity? I mean, they have power and influence, but, like, I mean, really when we boil down to it, like, I mean, you think of singers, you think of athletes, these people have tons of money and everybody wants to be like them because of that. Like, I mean, there are teachers who are great teachers of literature and can teach, you know, all sorts of interesting, cool facts about literature, but nobody's, like, looking out at them and saying, like, man, I want to be just like that person. Maybe a small group of people, but they don't have a following like a professional athlete has, like an entertainer has.
Well, that's why they put it on display too, to make you want that.
Yeah,
it's another condition point.
You know, anybody, it doesn't matter.
And it goes back to being content with yourself. It's being happy with the path that you choose.
Right. Like you said, follow your bliss, dude. You know, I mean, and I think that we have enough consciousness as human beings, like, you know, we're able to kind of rise above like that reptilian brain and, you know, see and really assess our world and like what we know about natural laws and things like that. And we can say, you know what? Yeah, we know that this is the way that things are, but we can work towards, you know, the way things should be. And, you know, we don't have to work towards greedy acquisition of wealth, greedy acquisition of power in order to feel fulfilled in ourselves and in our lives, man.
Mm-hmm.
And celebrity is just like a derivative of celebrate, right? We celebrate these people.
Right.
Celebrating educators. We're not celebrating Mrs. Morgan,
Why not?
You know, my second grade teacher who made an impact with my life, and I will never forget her.
You gotta read, you know, it's like
they're not celebrated.
Why not?
So, you know what I mean? They're not paid as much either. You know,
Right.
So why are we
Hell no.
so many millions of dollars? And then when the people that are celebrating them need them or want to see their face, nowhere to be found. Nowhere to be found.
Yep.
You can wait online.
Influencers, you know, the celebrities, whatever, nowhere to be found.
Yep.
Dang, I wanted to hit on something. I just forgot my point. I was going to hit on something you said earlier.
I wanted to jump to protesting. That's the next kind of action item.
I hope you remember it.
I hope you remember it. Protesting, and then kind of a subcategory of that, the new looters that everybody's coining that phrase and talking about looters. So let's talk a little bit about protesting versus looters and the instigators, right, that magically appear. The bricks. Oh, where did that pallet of fresh bricks come from? First of all, a pallet of bricks is 500 pounds. No one human can carry that. Right? And who has, that's going to a protest, who's bringing a forklift?
Right. Dude, it's staged, man.
So who the fuck is putting those bricks there?
They weren't there 2 weeks ago.
Oh, man, putting those bricks there.
Going on.
They showed it, man. They showed that there are agents of provocation.
Yes.
For being planted in these protests, dude.
Yes.
Again, this is not a conspiracy. This is not something that's like crazy or anything like that. This shit is happening. It's real.
I have an unbelievable amount of evidence that's being put out on social media. Here's the thing that I like. We have cameras now on our phones, right?
Oh, yeah.
Shed light on the bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing all these people showing up to protest that have no business being there, turning those peaceful protests into violent situations.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Of course, they want to make it look that. They want to make it look a certain way. They want to take control of that narrative.
And where does the camera always point?
To people wilding?
Then where does the media's cameras point?
Always.
It points directly to the protesters. It doesn't actually
it points at the violence. It points at the conflict. It points at the story that they're trying to skew. You know, every time a lens is put down, right, there's a perspective behind it. Right?
Of course. I think in this case it's very easy for people, and they look at the violence and they look at the looting and they don't separate that from there's never a thought process to think that's being hijacked. That's not what the majority of the people are out there doing. That's not the message that they're trying to portray, at least from my point of view, from my perspective as somebody who's walking into this for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that this is a separate situation. You've got people who are instigating that. They are purposely there for that reason.
Yeah.
And it's there to hijack.
Mm-hmm.
And then who gets blamed for it? The protesters who are there, who are trying to make a significant difference in their communities. Yeah. And in our nation as a whole, get blamed for it.
Yeah.
It's absolutely, there aren't words.
Who owns the media?
Exactly. No, that's what I'm saying. As soon as you put a camera down, there's a perspective behind it.
They've been, you know, that's their biggest bullhorn.
Of course. And who sees it? Not just the United States, the world.
The world. I feel like even the world is finally, or maybe not even finally. I can't even say finally, because I feel like maybe the world has known that America has been on some bullshit since after World War II. And we in this country have been fed us a whole bowl of lies on how great our country is.
Yeah.
But there are, you know, communities all over the world that have had, you know, what we see on the nightly news as positive influence by the United States in country A, B, or C as, man, they just came here and fucked a bunch of shit up. And, you know, we were trying to do our thing and they just decided that that wasn't what they wanted to do. I mean, look what's happening in the Middle East. If you want a contemporary example in our own lifetime, look at what has happened in the Middle East with Iraq, with our constant nitpicking and it's like every single presidential president since, you know, at least since George W. Bush has been trying to pick something with Iran, some type of conflict with Iran. Look what's happening in Syria. Dude, this shit is not, it's not an accident. Like we've done that in Afghanistan. Think about it even there. Like there are influences, again, that have the government in their pocket in this country that have made those situations in those places the way that they are right now. Like, I mean, before, it's well established, before Saddam Hussein was toppled from power, and I'm not saying anything about Saddam Hussein. Yeah, the guy sucked. He was awful. But you know what? He was a gigantic check in that region, in the region of the country we call Iraq. And since he has been deposed, all sorts of shit has been popping off over there. And in a community where people were, yeah, they were living under a guy who was a piece of shit. I get it. But now it's fucking like chaotic over there. So you took away somebody that, yeah, he was a dick, but he was also keeping a lot of other dicks in check. And so, but we decided that we knew better and we were going to go ahead and make that situation better. And now look where it is. And when is the last time you heard about Iraq on the news? We were supposed to have won the war on terror there, right?
Yeah. What does that look like?
Yes, dude. It's not a thing. But we can't live with our own failure, so they stop reporting on it. They're like, stop reporting. Just, yeah, we got troops there. Yeah, we got people there. You know, don't report on it. Like, you know, just tell them about something else. Like, I think gay people are trying to get married. Like, run that story. How it's going to ruin the country. Come on, do it.
But look at that concept of the military. Why do we have troops everywhere? Like, when did other places become our enemies? And
when did other places call us and be like, hey, buddy, why don't you come over here? Fucking show up. With the unemployed guest that shows up without any goddamn chips or any fucking side dishes or any buns or with the uninvited guest that shows up.
Last time that happened was during World War II, to my knowledge.
Yeah.
No country has been like calling us up and been like, hey, they're really fucking up shit. Can y'all come and like help us out?
Right. And they send a lot of you know, people of color there, and they get treated even in another country
better over there than they do.
Worse. Better by the people in the other country that they're shooting at.
That's what I'm saying.
And worse by the guys who are literally standing next to them with a gun in their hand.
Mm-hmm.
Same uniform, same everything. I mean, speak on that a little bit, Natalie, from literally going through that experience.
Well, I didn't deploy. I didn't get to
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Afghanistan. 2 different occasions. 9/11 was one. I was assigned 2-person team. First sergeant told me to go ahead and get your affairs in order. I'm Team Charlie. Said, okay, let's do it. A week later, oh, don't worry about it. Specialist Little. Team Delta left already. How you went A, B, and skip C? Okay, that's one time. Second time, I was stationed in Belgium, and they actually asked for volunteers to do a few months over there in Afghanistan. Signed up. Said, okay, might as well, let's do it. Let's go. And literally, like days later, the the commander came in and was like, okay, thank you guys so much for volunteering, but the mission has been canceled. But if it goes on again, we'll definitely sign you guys up. So I just never went. So I just look at it as that. But being that I have lived overseas,
right,
in Korea, and I was in Belgium, so I was in Europe and in Asia. Not necessarily a great rap in Asia with Korea, but let's just say, speak on that one, because soldiers come over there with the attitude that I'm American, I ain't gotta do shit. I ain't gotta follow your rules. I'm about to go do this, and hey, oh, you saying something, sir? Oh, I'm American though. Let me go, and that's it.
Wow.
I would say like a lot of natives, not necessarily like our presence in their country all the time.
Yeah. Why are we there? We have so much stuff going on in our own. This goes back to the self-healing and self-reflection and working on self. That can be implemented countrywide, right? Why do we everywhere besides working on the shit that's in our fucking front yard, in our house?
Money. It's
yeah, I get it.
It's all
but you know what's interesting though?
Yo.
Do you know when the Pope goes into that church, the one that they never let cameras into, because
The Vatican?
Well, the Vatican's a city. The Vatican's the Vatican's the country itself. But you may be thinking of a specific cathedral. I can look it up.
It's a specific cathedral, and they go in when they're passing from one pope to the next. And recently, I think, they just had another one. When you go inside and you look at what they're bowing down to and worshiping, it's the Madonna and Child, and it's a black Madonna and Child, which is a replica of a symbol from Egypt, Isis and Heru. Right. So where did that sickness come from later on if these white societies are still worshiping a black image, but then giving a white image to everyone else?
White out on their face.
Right. Like,
and blue eyes and blonde hair.
It's like I'm gonna take all of your power, but then I'm gonna put my face on it and make everybody feel like it's coming from me.
Right.
Yeah. I think this is a war on genetics because, looking at it now at 2020, we're in a place now where we're evolving, and like you said, Ethan, anything you put your mind to, you can do. But I don't think they felt that way for a very long time. And I'm not talking about all white people. I'm talking about the ones who have that psychology that they're less than, which to a certain extent, if you can't have, a melanated baby, or you don't blend well with the sun, things like that, like what does that do to your psychology coming from a cold nature where you don't have a lot of greenery growing around you all the time? Like your environment becomes harsh. So your psychology becomes harsh. And I think that's a psychology.
Really fucking interesting.
Yeah. So I think that altered the genetics and then created a new psychology. And now we're dealing with that same thing where, it's that capital is coming off of, genetics, like Henrietta Lacks. They took that black woman, took her genes and created like hundreds of different medicines. They'll take, black men and turn them into NBA stars and NFL stars because they have genetics that are different than everybody else. Like, how in the world can Michael Jordan stay in the air that long? Everybody can't do that.
Right.
And and you see people are starting to evolve, like the whole human family is evolving. And I'm trying to like bring it all together with like what happened to break that chain from where we were one family to another part, feeling like, I'm not part of this family because I don't see my face anywhere. I don't see my face on none of the temples around the world. Everywhere I go, I see somebody with a big booty and a fat nose and some thick hair.
Right.
But mine is straight and my skin is pale. So where do I fit in? So like, I think black people are dealing with that same reality now. Like, we're seeing what it looks like when you see a whole world with somebody else's face on it. It messes up your way of thinking. So I think once we break out of that, we'll be able to heal that psychological trauma that started thousands of years ago, and then we'll shift, you know, us into a new, you know, place of consciousness, I guess.
Absolutely.
That's deep, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was heavy.
Good. Yeah.
This man real smooth, like, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's
Like, he just,
it's hard to argue with that. Yeah, I mean, if you to even further that too, it's like, you know, if you do have a harsher mindset, you're looking for more control. So what is your country's then producing? Things to implement control, right? Boats, navies, weapons, right? How did they, you know, if you look at Britain being one of the biggest colonizers in the history of the world, which they are, right? What did they do when they got to all those other countries that they colonized? They destroyed their history first and foremost to take away, right, to implement that control even further, right? And then shot the noses off, you know, in the pyramids, right, to make all those statues and all that history look like them, right? And they were the writers of the history. So even the history that we're referencing, right,
completely
was written by the people that created the language that we're speaking right fucking now.
Well, I do think there's something to be said about taking colonizers having had a big say in what is an appropriate appearance in a person. There's a lot of completely impossible beauty standards that are not just measurements in a person, but the right type of shade that you should be, an acceptable shade, an acceptable hair. If you have a texture to it, well, what's the acceptable texture to that hair? And why is it that you don't see women and men that maybe have like a tighter curl pattern? Why is the darker shade, and this is something, the darker shade, excuse me, I'll finish that thought, not acceptable? And this is global. This is completely global. You see it everywhere. You see India is a big proponent of it. A lot of Asian countries, the whiter the better. In Latin America, we have a lot of colorism. In Latin America, we have colorism. So and because we're so racially diverse in Latin America, it took a while. It took a while to see people that looked a little bit more like what you see when you walk down the streets, and less with the need to put European features at the forefront as the representative of your country. But that doesn't necessarily describe the real demographics. But we do have a serious problem when people assume that, oh, no, you know, like I think, Brandon, you made a wonderful point of, well, Madonna and Child in that particular portrait are probably painted more accurately than what you would normally see. And you know, we have pictures and portraits of Jesus, of what we assume is God. They're not accurate to what would have actually to what the actual color of Jesus would have been. We're so engrossed. We let that be the forefront. And I think the one that's so mind-boggling, if you want to take it back to influencers and branding, this has been my frustration, and Jana has heard so much about it, but I'm sure it's ad nauseum at this point. But seeing some of the influencers do what's called blackfishing, where now that it's trendy to be diverse, and now that it's to be of color, and now it's okay, and it's mind-boggling as to,
let me get some ad shots.
How do they exploit it?
Well, I mean, I've been in acting groups where somebody said to me, you know what, I was in an acting group where an unnamed person, I really don't know their name, had said, you can pass as a Latin American woman of color. All you have to do is go to SAG and change your name. And then she started kind of talking about some of the stereotypes that this particular actor could do so that they could be put into this group, because now it's trendy. Now people of color in the media are trendy. So it's horrifying. It's really horrifying how that can easily, the perception of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable has played for generations. it really does mess with your mind as to whether or not you are acceptable as a person. That's horrible.
They're still playing those mind games.
Oh yeah.
Even they're still playing those mind games.
Yeah.
Because I think
programming, because we have it within our own community as well, colorism.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm just saying, like, when we're walking in those audition rooms, like, even now, like, it took years before, because I have forced, like, well, I don't know if you're going to do the texture thing, but, you know, my hair is kinky, Black Panther afro when I let it loose. But I've been noticing myself doing a two-strand twist or different things to kind of make it look more presentable. Or we wouldn't normally go into our audition with these braids in, because we're like, oh, we got to come in as the character and the stereotype of what that character should look like. If it's the girl next door, she's not going to come in with braids. So let me switch it up. She's not going to have locks. And that's been an issue. And I think I was telling a friend, I was just like, man, I feel like we're going to come in there and they're going to get what they're going to get. Whatever's on his head is what they get, and they're going to have to start opening up their mind to see us in different ways. Like, we can see each other. Like, I can look at you and say, yeah, you'd be great for that role, and it's not based off of your race, you know, or who you are, your you know what I mean? It's not like, oh, because she's white, you know, I see you as this white person too, and you know what I mean? We're women, so we should be able to play a role as a woman, you know. Mm-hmm. Or whatever the case is. But it's been these little things that I've just noticed that I've had to do. Oh, I don't look like my headshot. So I know they don't have the imagination to see me as whatever this role is. So let me try to fine tune myself into that role so that they can see me. And then we get in there and we're competing against each other, you know, for this one slot, when it shouldn't be one slot. You know what I mean?
That's why I started Neural Network. And, you know, that's why I'm so glad to have, you know, everybody that's on here as part of it too. We kind of started together, obviously. Yeah, it's such a poisonous mindset. And I teach my students that too. When I talk about casting, I say, don't ever put a physical description into the casting. Or on when you're doing a character bio, right? Just write their personality down and see who comes.
Yeah.
And see what, you know, actors embody that character.
That's it.
That's it. That's literally it. It's not like rocket science, people.
And to touch on the hair thing, because I am a Black female, I'm an actress too. When I was going in those rooms, I haven't been in the room, I don't know how long, but when I was, girl, I had about 4 or 5 wigs for different.
You got to.
Oh, it's a commercial. Oh, I gotta have my nice long wig. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, for each role.
Absolutely, absolutely. And when I do go back in the room, it is gonna be, this is who I am. Oh, you want a Keisha? Okay, this Keisha got afro. Oh, you want Sarah? Okay, Sarah got 2-strand twists. Oh, you understand?
Because as women, we like to change our hair up, and they kind of put us in a box. Like, for me, the commercial girl, they always gonna want my afro. Mm-hmm. Oh, where's your fro? Where's your fro at today? You know, this is what I'm hearing, and it's just kind of like I wanted to wear braids. I wanted to get my hair a break. It's tearing my hair out to twist it up like that every day. I can't keep doing this, you know. Mm-hmm. And I like to wear my hair. I want other Black girls who need to see the representation to see my fro, but sometimes, you know, as a community, you know, Black women, we switch it up. We will switch it up. We'll come in there with a fro one day. We'll have, like, you know, a pixie cut. You know, you just never know.
Exactly.
Keep you on your toes.
Right. Keep you on your toes. So what woman you want today? We all love them. We've been playing characters, you know, with the wigs and different things. That's who we are. We're creative, and we like to express ourselves. And I cannot stand this limit on us when we're going into those rooms. And I just, like, no, I keep going on and on about it. But, you know, when it comes to these brands and stuff, I want them to see that, you know. And understand we have to, you know, and I want us to create our own, but I also want if they're creating stories and they're writing things and we just want to go in those rooms, I want diversity. I want, and it's going across, not just like acting, because I model too. And you look at the roster and there's 3 of us, and here's the categories. We have the ambiguous girl, as they say, who fits all of us. They'll sometimes just book an ambiguous girl to fit every category, because she looks Black, she looks, she looks Asian too, and she looks a little Latina. So we're gonna just book her for that. There's our diversity slot. Boom, we're done. Then you have the straight hair girl who usually wears her hair straight, and then you'll have the Afro girl who's most likely most of the time she's African, which is fine, whatever, but there is no more room. That's it. And they'll literally tell you when you submit for these, oh, you are conflict with another girl, so we won't sign you. I've been told that because there was another girl who had a gap in a fro. So there's no room, but then you'll look and you'll see several other, mainly white girls or whatever, and they'll have ginger hair and freckles, and they'll have, straight blondes or whatever, or brunettes or whatever, and it's like 50 of them. And then you see 4 girls. So how is that image affecting, you know what I mean? When you're walking in this room, or we're being told, our friends who say their hips are too wide. No, we can't book you, your nose. And all of these different things. And I'm just so fed up. I'm just like, we can't, I have a responsibility to when I'm going into these rooms that I have to say no to this too. You know what I mean? I feel responsible because when my image is out there, what am I saying to the girls who are looking up, to me? So it's just like, I'm like, crap, how, I don't even know how to begin to, change it. You know what I mean? I know that when I go into these rooms or whatever, I can speak up and say, hey, here's the issue with that. And I'm really curious as we open up to how what the environment is going to be like, and kind of how the situation will be walking into these rooms. I'm hoping that this has been eye-opening for them as well, from the casting side of things, and the clients and and those rooms will be more diverse and have some different perspectives and creativity and imagination to see us all as not one thing, because it's going across the board. Like there's the way they look at a certain person, say, oh, you're the comedic character, you're the this and that, and we get put into these boxes. Clearly, I'm gonna come off my soapbox right now, but
But even going back to the hair, right?
Yeah.
So us as Black women have to do so much and make them comfortable, basically,
right,
with our Blackness. But that requirement, white women or women that don't have our hair don't even understand that. They don't even begin to fathom that thought. So it kind of goes back with what we were saying earlier at the top of the show, where we have to work extra hard or double than our white counterparts or the people that don't look like us for everything. You know what I mean? Even with my father, to be honest with you, when he started in the mail service, like back in the 70s, Brandon, what my daddy said? It was like, let's say 50 people that work at the post office and 4 people were Black. But they had to work extra hard to even get into the post office. To get into the post office. We always have to work harder than our other counterparts. The level of our standards are here for everybody else, and everybody else can be right down here. But guess what? The ones that are right down here,
and I think the solution to that is realizing that that's just an illusion. So the moment Black women start to say, no, I don't have to straighten my hair to look pretty. I don't have to put on all this makeup. I don't have to look like a white girl to be accepted. And because Black women are the most influential being on the planet, so when she starts to set her own standard, the whole world is going to follow. And that's the same with the brothers too, and with everybody on the planet. Like, we've been allowing other people to tell us what the standard is. Yes. And it's like not realizing, like, nah, I create that standard for myself. Yeah. So instead of trying to compete with all these awful standards and rules you got for me, I'm just gonna be my full-on natural self.
Right on.
Yep.
Right on. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Looters. Let's talk about looters. Good.
Looters. That one.
Take some shit back, right?
Yeah, exactly. Bringing it back. No, I mean, look, I love tangents. If we go off some tangents, that
because we didn't even get on the doggone hairstylists that we don't have on set. We didn't even go into that.
No,
they're not even there. Or hairstylists or makeup artists. I don't know how to do makeup, but I have to learn some. I always bring it with me just in case.
Right.
And every time I get to set, it's like, can you do your hair? I can count on my hand the amount of times I went on set and had a hairstylist available while we're sitting on the side doing our hair and makeup, and they're getting fully prepped. Like they understand like straight hair. They don't know any texture, any curl.
Come on, Jen.
Girl, why when you see certain movies that some of them black girls' hair be looking a little suspect?
That's why. That's why they don't know. They don't know. They don't know.
I didn't know that. Okay, that makes sense now. Hell, because some of them.
Yeah, they're not there. There's no one there. They can't even tell. They cannot tell that your hair looks bad. They don't know.
Cause like that.
Your makeup. They don't know why you ashy. They don't understand.
I want to say you got that gray texture on your face, that gray tone on your face.
I always keep my makeup with me because I'm like, you're not finna have me out here like that.
Look,
because you know I'm gonna get toe up when everybody see it. I'm gonna get toe up online. That is
was a black makeup hairstylist doing that shit all wrong. Like, girl, you know
they don't call us in. They're not in the rooms.
They're not.
Or if they don't. They may be doing something else, but they're not. They're rarely there.
Wow.
They're not. They don't know.
That's a new one. Learn something new every day. Golly.
Yeah.
But. Yeah, the looters.
That's the looters.
Back on track with that.
That's right.
Oh, we gone from brand new. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. The looters. Yeah, it's getting late now. We've been on for 2 hours and 40 minutes. Back to looters.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it kind of connects to this whole instigators and all of that. My mom was telling me that Cincinnati Police Department did a study for the protests and everything that were happening in Cincinnati and the looters that were arrested, specifically, quote unquote, the looters. And they did a racial breakdown on who they were. It was 85% Caucasian that were arrested.
For looting?
That's all I see. Honestly, I ain't gonna lie to you. That's all I really see on, social media, the news. I rarely see anybody that look like me.
I see some of the cops looting too. Do you see the video?
I've seen the picture of the cop with all those.
They're back in the car with like bags full of fucking Nike bags, and all that stuff.
Wow.
Oh my God! And then the media saying there's an unbelievable clip where this lady was leaving the Gucci store, running like, as fast as she could, bags in hands and all of that, and the camera hits her, and I hopefully she's an employee.
No, it's a hopefully. It's a maybe. Maybe she's just an employee. Right.
It was a white woman. Maybe she's an employee.
She's trying to protect.
She was just cleaning up the store.
That's what we're talking about. The fucking verbiage. That's the verbiage we're talking about.
The verbiage. Back to the verbiage. Absolutely. Maybe.
We're talking about thugs, looting and shooting. But when we have Charlottesville, what did he say? Oh, there's good people on both sides.
Both sides.
I see good people on both sides, but we're all thugs because we are unrest and like for this injustice. Like it doesn't make. It's crazy. It's crazy, but it's not crazy because we already know.
We see it.
So why am I getting upset? Let me calm it down. Continue.
Engineered this way. They have a goal in mind.
They know.
Yeah.
They got the psychological effect of what these terms. I mean, they spend a lot of money studying it.
Yes.
They do. They have experts, that they bring in. And they see the visceral response to very specific verbiage.
And that's almost like a trigger for them.
Absolutely, it's a trigger.
That have been programmed all of their lives, from their parents to them. So they already automatically know, oh shit, that black folks, they're right about it. Oh my God, protest is great, guys, but you know, all this looting is not right. Black lives matter? No. No. No.
And this is the newest on the terms that, the quote unquote terms that and verbiage that they use for basically disrespecting black people.
Mm-hmm.
And putting them into this category of what they've been putting, you know, African Americans in the category of. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I think like we were saying earlier, before I lose my thought about about looters and the kind of things that the media does when they're trying to put that spin on. And we can kind of talk about what we talked about before in terms of humans as an animal interested in resource acquisition. So if you as a person are watching the news and you see another person taking resources from a business or from somebody else, whatever it may be, that is immediately threatening to you.
Yeah.
You will immediately associate the thing that was happening before somebody else, before resources were stolen, there was this thing that was happening, and it was a protest. And that led to somebody's shit getting taken from them, somebody's resources being stolen, and that's threatening to me. So this whole, I don't know what this whole thing is about necessarily, but this whole thing has to go because it's all that's threatening. Because there's a possibility that it could spread to me and I'll lose my resources. People are going to come to my house and take my things. And I can't have that because that's going to threaten my survival, my ability to have children, provide for those children, etc. So that's, again, another useful psychological tool that they can continue to show, even though a lot of the protests have been peaceful.
Yeah.
They can show
the one that Natalie, Brandon, and I went to yesterday was beautiful. There was poetry, there was songs, there was dance. It was unbelievable.
But that's not going to get that visceral response that you were talking about, Aaron.
No, it's not going to get any media coverage at all.
No, of course not.
It's not what they're looking for. To again, put out there the same intention and lens and narrative that they want to put forward.
Exactly. And it also feeds into that us versus them mentality.
Mm-hmm.
That derision, that decisive, those divisions that we talked about, and it helps it helps embolden people that, already have those ideas inside of them anyways. And then it helps influence it to people who might be sitting on the fence. Because I talk to a lot of people who say, well, I don't really know how to feel about, this area. I mean, I know something's wrong, something bad is happening, but I get the police brutality is bad, but did you see what they were doing downtown at those stores? Like, they were taking all that stuff and
but
what are we supposed to think? When, how am I supposed to reconcile these two things in my mind? I don't like the police brutality, but I don't like the looting and, the stealing of resources. And so I'm still on this fence. I don't know who, you're telling me one thing and but the news said something else, and they had a guy on there that had a PhD. And so I don't know, he sounded like he really knew what he was talking about too. So, but and so those fence sitters have, the same effect as somebody who is actively, working against the cause that we're trying to push forward, which is these peaceful protests, because, their apathy, will lead them to be ruled by evil men. They're not wanting to actively engage. What did Desmond Tutu say? He had a really good quote that was like, if you are silent or if you're neutral in a situation of injustice, you've chosen the side of the oppressor. That is the truth, dude.
Oh.
That's the truth. But with the media spin, it makes it harder for people to get on the side of right. So we're fighting an uphill battle, dude. We are fighting an uphill battle.
But that's the beauty of today with social media and cell phones with cameras and shit. We can be the media.
Mm-hmm.
We have to put out our own true information because you can't rely on the media to tell you the damn truth. They didn't prove they ain't gonna tell you the truth. They're gonna tell you what best fits them to get their shit sensationalized and get people watching them. But you can keep going to these protests and putting your videos out, your live streams, whatever. Keep recording the police out there ganking black people just because. Put out your information, because that's the only way the truth is gonna get out there. All of this shit happening with these police, this ain't just start happening. It just start getting recorded. It's just being seen, because now there is an outlet to put it out there to show you, no, this is what they do. This is what they have been doing. This isn't new. So all we have to do is be our own media. Keep putting it out there. Everybody got social media of some kind. Put it out there, spread it, share the shit. It'll get around. It will eventually. I think that's what's happened with the media, is because there's so much out now from other regular people, because they're putting so much out on social media. You can't turn around and say, I went to this protest in DC, it was so violent. But 800 other people were there, they said it was peaceful. What part of the damn protest was you was at where you happen to only see CNN saw violence, but 6 people on Instagram saw peace? So that they have to start telling the truth, because they're getting caught in their own damn lies now. Yeah. They're being held accountable for telling the truth, because other people are forcing you to, because they're putting out the truth before your ass can put out a lie.
Exactly. And that's this brings me back to a quote that Denzel had actually recently. And he said, all the media outlets want to be first so bad that they want to skip the truth.
Oh, yeah.
They don't want to report accurate news. They want to be first. So it doesn't matter what they have to do. And they don't care the ramifications of the message that they're putting out there. Right? And they're not thinking about that message and the perspective of that message and its relevance to truth, because they want to be first so bad.
Right.
You know what, to hit on what Jen said, though, talking about we need to push our, our media within ourselves and to each other and things like that, to that nature. But we need people that don't look like us to push that media too. Yeah. We are not necessarily within those circles. So they're still not seeing you. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So we still need people that look like your husband, and to sit there and
trying to do this
and say, hey, Billy Bob passed this shit on too, and you post it. Because we, as black people, we got our circles. So they're gonna be more black people, but we need to have more of everybody else to actually see everything as well. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
So, can y'all hear me? Yeah. I want to first off, I want to say hello to everybody. I know everybody on here except for Sandra, I think. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Ethan, my dude, haven't seen or talked to in years. Good to see your face. But speaking of the media, like I just literally put up a Facebook post about this maybe yesterday or Thursday, but I've been making an effort to diversify my Facebook feed, because we only see the news that the algorithm puts in our feed because of what we watch, what we consume. But we don't see the other side, and the other side just really won't tell the story, even if they're wrong, like the Charlottesville thing or even the peaceful protests. And an example would be, I know y'all heard about the dude that hopped out of his car with the bow and arrow and he got his ass beat. Yeah. And he was like, right in front of the reporter, he said it was 2 black dudes. Yeah. And then somebody else caught the video. They kept the receipts, and it was about 8 or 9 white people and maybe 1 black dude, I think.
Yeah. Black people were the ones yelling at him.
They was the ones whooping his ass.
And whooping his ass.
The dude, they was beating his ass. Well, the dude on the car was like, "Fuck him up." That was a white dude. Get his ass. But they just, even if they post that like on the right leaning side, the conservative side of news, I can see it on my feed, because I make sure that I have that stuff on there too, so I can see those stories. They'll post that first video of him saying, "Oh, it was 2 white or 2 black dudes doing that." But then when it comes out with that second part of the video that tells the whole story, that he's pointing a bow and arrow at people, and then he got swarmed by a bunch of white people, they won't turn around and tell that story. They just won't.
They'll just edit it out.
Yeah, they'll edit it out, and people on Facebook do not admit that they're wrong. Nobody on my feed ever admits that they're wrong about anything, even if they say some stupid shit, and then it comes out that it was false. Nobody wants to be wrong.
Yeah. It's really easy to say, look, I was wrong. I need to correct this.
Yeah, and nobody's going to chastise you for that. Nobody's going to chastise you for that. And if they do, they're an asshole who thinks that they're right all the time when you're not. Nobody's right all the time.
But our forefathers have not done that. They do that. They already.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
They wrote a document that said all men are created equal, and then enslaved half the men in the country.
Had slaves.
Yeah.
Yep. They already had slaves, didn't they?
They're like, oh, except for those.
This small portion that's been built in the White House and every other goddamn thing in this country. They built this country. But remember, they're the laziest ones, too.
Uh-huh.
Right, yeah. All
let them know.
You know,
that far.
Derogatory, terrible horseshit that they, you know, embed in the minds of the masses and condition.
And then to speak on them fence sitters, I've been having a whole lot of conversations with them on Facebook, keeping it peaceable. But you're really just not going to change their mind because, like y'all said, it's in them. It's in us. It's in us to be rebellious and to call out shit when we see it, but it's also in them to just be complacent. And just do enough not to say that you're a part of it, and then also try to do enough to say that you're against it. Yeah. It don't work like that.
You ain't gonna change no grown person's mind. It's hard to change a grown ass adult's mind. You can, but somebody who's been taught something a certain way their entire 30, 45 years of life, it's gonna be hard to change their mind.
It goes back to the individual wanting to do it.
Well, yeah.
You have to be willing.
Well, it's hard. It's hard to even admit that you're wrong, and the path to progress is being okay with being wrong. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. If you're wrong about something, if you're wrong, it's fine to say you're wrong and learn from it. But if you're wrong and you're just not admitting it, that means you're not learning shit. You're the same person you were a minute ago.
Right.
What are you doing?
Right.
That psychology, unfortunately, is running rampant in the Black religious community.
Oh yeah.
Because we were given a lot of false information about our spirituality and our spiritual systems. But if you try to bring that to a pastor right now, his psychology has been ingrained for so long that this is real. When you try to give him some new information, he's gonna call you crazy. So it's that psychological thing where your foundation is what makes you whole. For us is our God or our religion. For racist white people, it might be the idea of being a white supremacist or money. So when you try to take that foundation away from them and they have nothing to replace that with, their psychology is so fragile where you feel like you're gonna collapse. Or shatter, so they don't allow that to shatter. So then they build up a wall of defense and then attack back. We see that's what's happening. And it's happening on both sides. And it's because we're perpetuating ideas that we got from these forefathers. They got psychological issues and they pass them down to us. And so, now I guess we gotta be in that process of undoing all of that stuff.
Absolutely. Which we're gonna do another one of these, and I want to talk about religion too. But
ooh, buddy.
Hello.
That's gonna be a talk.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a lot of people hate me for that one, which I don't care. Bring the smoke. I don't care.
Quick question.
I welcome it now.
Are we going to wrap up?
Let's do let me do a quick wrap up. I want to.
I got to use the bathroom. My dog got to use it too. So
I got to take mine out, and I got to go too.
Yeah. So one of the last things I wanted to show, just to remind people what it is this little video that TMZ released, which I'm glad that they did. Right? I want to talk about this video.
Oh, Lord, what kind of trauma? Hold on.
All right. Actually, hold on. Let me, I need to do it a certain way where you optimize sound. There you go, in video. So it's actually just a sound bite. All right, it's 22 seconds, but it's the Brooklyn police. All right?
Oh, shit, I think I know what this is.
Let's just play this real quick and see you can talk about it.
So we have a group of people blocking traffic on Albany and Dean Street. They're refusing to let the orange go eastbound on Dean Street and Albany. So we're stuck here. Run them over. Shoot those motherfuckers. Don't put that over yet.
Yep.
Wow.
I'm gonna put that there.
Wow.
Yeah, these motherfuckers out here yelling "Blue Lives Matter," though.
Right.
Oh, sorry, I used a curse word in front of Chubbs. My bad.
You don't understand it.
He's said it before.
Okay, he's like, what?
He said it before. I'm gonna try to limit it, as much as I can.
Blue Lives Matter all day.
Mm-hmm.
Run those.
That was the peaceful protest that they were talking about too.
Yep.
That video, right?
Mm-hmm.
Standing in front of the trucks. Is that what happened? Is that from that?
That might have been a different one, but it's the same thing. Like, you're a cop. You're not supposed to say that shit. You're not even supposed to think that.
We're seeing
Well, no. So they did run those motherfuckers over.
Yeah,
oh, did they?
Yes.
Yeah, 2 cop cars.
Oh.
They killed protesters.
Yeah.
Peaceful protesters. This is getting like no media attention at all, because there's so much horrible shit that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to focus on all the different things that are so abysmally terrible. And again, it's not feeding into the narrative that the media wants to give you, right? That control that they want to continue to force upon you.
Yeah, I bet I'll find that nowhere on that conservative side of the Facebook feed. Nobody's gonna talk about that.
I haven't seen it come through my Facebook. I haven't seen it. I saw it on Twitter, but
I heard about it. It came through. I know it wasn't through Facebook, but I think it may have been just Googling different protests throughout the United States.
You heard that one?
I didn't hear the actual. This is the first time I've heard the clip, but I remember coming across an article that they had recorded police officers specifically saying that they were trying to be violent towards the protesters, and the protesters were doing absolutely nothing to merit any type of that kind of response from police officers. So I did.
So hearing that, Sandra, what is your response after hearing that?
From police officers, I'll tell you what it is. So I have a couple of friends of mine that are police officers, and I think that they're having difficulty trying to look at what their brothers in arms are doing, and then wonder how could they be associated with this. So there is a little bit of a barrier of, I'm trying to hold it together, but I'm a part of this department. Not all of us are bad, but I think about other people who have come out and said, we understand that, but the problem is, the genuine problem is that we're not mad that you are a police officer and that you've chosen to go into law enforcement. What people are about is that you're allowing your brothers and sisters in arms to have this kind of thought process and to, at worst, follow through with it. So we certainly can't collectively blame all police officers, but we have to talk about the systems that are in place that protect the ones that should not be protected. Where I've heard plenty of arguments about taking some of the resources that they have and moving those resources into communities that need it. Communities that are well-resourced will not necessarily have the need to have police officers 24/7 around them. So when I think about that, you often do wonder, I love my friends. I know that they're good people. They're good police officers, but I can't always trust who they are around because I don't know them personally, and I worry about friends of mine who may be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and then things go down. And it's horrifying to think that there aren't laws in place that can ensure that the people who have firearms are going to use them responsibly and use their power responsibly. So we talk about things like they maybe have to have a 4-year degree. They have to have mental health checks. We have to look into the background and make sure that they don't already, and I know that this kind of goes against like our American thought process of in this country, we're allowed to believe whatever we want to believe, no matter how horrific it is. Klan is allowed to exist and believe what they want to believe, no matter how twisted we think it is, because this is the United States of America. However, when you are given that power, you have to double check that person isn't going to use their thought process and their power and then blindly have tragedy happen to a person who did not deserve it by any means at all. And it's shocking. It really is always shocking because again, the people that are supposed to be protecting you, that you are funding, that our money goes towards, In fact, some of those people are going to be people who are specifically wanting to exert their power and make sure that you are put in a position of fear. And that is not protecting. That is exerting a power. That is exerting a power over our communities. And I want to say communities, as sometimes I think people think that, we absolutely, those of us who are not Black, have to be quiet and really listen to the conversation and understand where this is coming from. But we have to come together. We have to lend our ears and try to go, well, how can we help? How can we be a community about this? Because if part of my community is hurting, that's not okay with me. That's not okay that part of my community is hurting like that. Feeling uncomfortable out of not knowing how to talk about it, tend to want to, live in there, but not all of us are like this. No, we know not all white people are bad people. Of course not. Not all police officers are bad people. Of course not. Right. We have to get rid of the ones who are. We have to have laws enacted so that they do not use their power to do what they are trying to do, which is to keep a certain part of this community down and under control. There's no need. There is no need for that. That rhetoric does not belong in this country. It's there.
Well, people also keep saying that, not all cops are bad. Like, we don't already know that, but
yeah.
People. And I mean, it's obvious. That's obvious. But
of course, yeah.
even if you're a good cop, you need to say something when other cops are doing shitty stuff. And then the departments need to not fire people who do actually speak out against it. And it's scary that happens. Like, I know there are obviously people in the police departments that want to speak up against this, but then you hear so often that these cops are making videos like slamming the other police officers doing shitty stuff, and then the next week they're gone, they're fired, which is crazy to me.
Do you know what was crazy to find out was there was a gentleman in Buffalo who was 75 years old. He was returning a helmet, and I'm sure you've all seen the footage. It's everywhere now, but
no, not the freeze.
Uh-oh.
Did I freeze?
You froze for a second, yeah.
Am I back?
You're back.
Am I all right? Okay. Initially, the report was that the gentleman fell, and now because we have footage of it, we see that the police officer pushes him. The man falls to the ground, and now he's bleeding out of his ears. And this is a 75-year-old man. And the next report I hear is the police department they've all resigned. And I'm thinking, and this is where I told you, and I need to lower my expectations apparently, but I thought that they had walked away because they do not want to be associated with the department who allows that to happen. And instead they were, they had left to protest the fact that the two officers that were there that had actually done the pushing, they were protesting, they were leading a protest of, why did you get those two, brothers in trouble? Why did you get
they were mad because they got suspended.
Yeah. One police officer during that time, I think, leaned over to see if the gentleman was okay, and then another police officer pulled him away. Yeah. So it's not the people who have power. The people who have power that are supposed to serve and protect. We have to make sure there have to be laws in place to make sure that they are equipped to do that job, because not everybody should be doing that job, and it is evident. We see that there is absolute proof of that. And again, I had to lower my expectations. I had to lower the expectations that I had for my countrymen, because I thought, my God, I thought that they had protested because they didn't want to be associated with this type of action. That was not the case. That's very sad.
Yeah, I read that yesterday, and that's that's indicative of what's happening. Like, you're mad because these two dudes used excessive force against a 75-year-old man who was not a threat to them. They were marching in line with the fucking National Guard right behind them. What's he gonna do? But you're mad because he's got suspended.
The helmet back to the officer.
He was returning a helmet back to the officer, and even if he had attempted, he is a 75-year-old man. You are head to toe, completely covered.
In riot gear.
And you correct. You have an entire group of people behind you. If he even attempted, I would assume that you would be well equipped to be able to handle a situation, but that's not what occurred. So what we're seeing is, in fact, an abuse of power. An abuse of power, and walking around him. He's still laying there. Nobody runs over to make sure that this person is getting any type of help. Now, if that happens to a 5-year-old white man, we can imagine what happens to minorities.
That's what we want. Oh, girl, exactly.
That's the saddest part, is that everybody literally just walked. Well, I won't say everybody. It was all the cops walked around him. The guy that initially pushed him tried to get down and see how he was. He got pulled off by another cop. And the only person to stop was one of the National Guard people when he actually got to the point in the line where he could see this guy.
Right.
And that's crazy to me.
So I equate this a lot to, again, I love my friends who are police officers. I know them. They're good people. However, we do have to talk about the fact that this isn't just a couple of cops that are doing wrong and bad things. There's a system in place that has protected these bad cops. We can't let them be protected any longer. And it's an uncomfortable conversation to say you're associated with something that right now people are putting a light on. But it's a lot that has to come out. And I say that as well of, like, I have friends of mine who are white that I grew up with that I love dearly. They're good people. But I know that it is uncomfortable for them to talk about race, but you have to talk about it because you have brothers and sisters who are a part of this nation, that are a part of your community, and they are hurting, and they are trying to tell you that they are hurting. And it is your responsibility to listen. Because you have a voice. You have a voice in this community that unfortunately is bigger than my voice, and you have to use it. So I would hope that when people are hearing this, that rather than them feeling attacked, don't be defensive. They're asking for help. Communities are asking for your help. And I hope that is the underlying message that comes across. So one great resource is, if you guys haven't checked out Jane Elliott, who was a woman who and it was actually 1968, the day after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, took her third grade class and did an exercise with them that more or less separated kids by eye color, blue and brown. And she managed to recreate this system that this nation has with racism. So now what she realized was how quickly these children took to it. And now she spent over 50 years of her life being an activist and trying to make people understand what it is like to live in the shoes of someone who has had their resources taken away from them from day one, who, when you look at them, there's already a preconceived notion, and the fact that you don't deal with that on a daily basis. If you want to ignore the problem, you can choose to say, it's not my community, it is not my problem, let me walk away from that. But that's not the kind of conversation that I want to see. I want to see people saying, somebody's hurting my friend. I want to know who's hurting my friend. I want to know how I can help my friend. So it's a great resource to anyone. If anyone wants to check out Jane Elliott, I sincerely think that is a wonderful resource for people who are now wanting to have dialogue.
Yeah, she's been a powerful advocate for a really long time. That experiment that she did was pretty crazy. I mean, and again, I guess it points to the idea that, because, like when she was in the classroom with the blue-eyed, brown-eyed, kids and whatnot, one group had or acquired some arbitrary means power, and how quickly power can corrupt a person, and that goes into, like what I said earlier about policing, is that, despite the fact we don't have any better alternative, I mean, we have to figure something out, because humans by themselves you can't have a group of people that polices another group of people, a populace, effectively. It just doesn't work, because they will be corrupted by that power eventually, whether they like it or not. And they might not all be active in that corruption, but again, just like that thing I said from Desmond Tutu, if you're silent in the face of injustice, you've chosen the side of the oppressor. Oh, that is a thing. Like, I mean,
you're allowing it to happen. Yeah.
So I want to end there. I know we have places to go. We've been on here for 3 hours and 50 minutes now.
We got the Zoom Pro. We balling now?
We have the Zoom Pro. Yeah. For it. Oh, hello. Worth it. Thank you, Zoom. Yes. Thank you all, my wonderful guests, for being on today. And everybody in Neural Network, it's part of this, and all my friends here. I want to continue this dialogue. I think it needs to continue. I don't think change isn't going to happen overnight. And I want this conversation to continue and to be genuine. So thank you for tuning in, all the viewers, and lots more to come.
Awesome, man.
All right.
Thank you all again.
Good seeing all y'all faces.
Yep.
Thank you for having us, Aunt.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Talk soon. Thank you all again.
Thanks. Bye.
Later, peace.
Great combo, guys.
Yes, great combo.